There are some things that are more important than abilities. A girl with an embarrassed face turns to a man named Rui. Another girl with horns also addresses a man named Rui. These girls were embarrassed, as they were dressed in quite revealing outfits. The guy says that it was these girls who saved her. After some time, some actions took place in the village of Quebec. A voice is addressing a guy named Rui. It was a girl who stood with one foot on a guy and says that Rui is already 15 years old, and he still does not know how to use magic. Rui turns to a girl named Elena. The girl shows you how to use magic correctly. She lets out a few streams of water from her hand. She doesn't understand why Rui can't use her. Elena doesn't understand why. Rui doesn't understand anything. She arises and begins to trample Rai harder, saying that he would not arise and would not contradict her. The guy does not understand why Elena grew up to be such a girl, since she used to be kind. He is very sorry. But Rui does not know how to use magic, unlike other people. Rui also does not have time in sports. It was only at the age of 10 that he noticed that there are those people who, no matter how hard they try, they get nothing. Rui stumbles and falls at the moment. The crowd of people also notice that Rui is stumbling again. Rui notices that compared to him, Elena is a genius. She first started using magic at the age of 3. She's got a lot of talents. Rui is nothing to her compared to herself. She probably doesn't understand what he's like. Elena takes Rui's hand and says that she will train him again as his lover. Rui doesn't even love her. She is happy that he is dating a cutie like her and also trains with her. Rui realizes that this cannot go on forever. Rui is a little worried and says that he wants to study alone today. She doesn't understand why Rui doesn't want to study with her. Elena tries to persuade Rui to work out with her, since he can become stronger alone. The girl says that all people can use basic magic from birth. She tells Rui that he is just a loser. She feels sorry for his parents, who were already feasting in the next world. Rai's face changed. At that moment, he felt a mental pain. His patience had run out. He says he won't date Elena anymore. The girl is confused, as she did not expect such words from the guy. She doesn't understand why he doesn't want to date her. She denies his words, sharing a sweet look along the way. The guy says that there can be no relationship, since they can't even become friends. The guy despises such arrogant people and says that the girl would leave him alone. The girl thinks the guy is joking and asks him to stop. After a while, the guy runs into some kind of forest. He says it's always difficult to walk in this forest. This forest, which is located near the village, is called the Impenetrable Forest. There are no monsters or people here. This is exactly what you need for a secret workout. The guy starts his workout. A magical green glow appears around the guy. He raises his left hand to his chest and says that first he must imagine and concentrate the magic going on inside him. He has to turn mana into magic and quietly channel it into his fingertips. Particles are coming out of his right hand. He calls this spell the wind. As a result, it wasn't the wind that blew out of his hand, but something like steam that quickly evaporated. Rui fell into despair, because everything turned out as he thought. The guy remembers Elena's words that she feels sorry for his parents. He looks down desperately. Rui clenches his hand into a fist and prepares not to give up. As a result, he gets everything as usual. He repeats his actions over and over again, but to no avail. Still, no matter how hard he tries, he can't do anything. Rui notices that since recently, a strange atmosphere has been floating in the forest. If there are monsters here, then he needs to finish his training as soon as possible. Suddenly, he notices a strong magic that even he feels. He sees a rift in the ground where the glow is coming from. He thinks that it is from this hole that magic comes. He does not understand what kind of hole it is, because as he got closer to it, it began to glow even more. He needs to go back to the village and tell everyone about it. Suddenly, his foot slips into this hole, after which he falls into it. Rui falls into this hole and asks God to give him a good childhood friend and strength at his next rebirth. Rui wakes up in a place he doesn't know. He doesn't understand where he is. He remembers that after he ran away from Elena, he found a big obscure hole in the forest while he was training. He remembered falling into it. He doesn't understand what kind of space it is and where he is. Then he notices a girl who is standing behind him. It was a girl in a black dress with small horns and big eyes. She is interested in the guy, saying that he finally woke up like that. Rui does not know who it is and says with embarrassment that this is the first time he has seen such a beautiful girl. He notices that the girl has horns growing out of her head. He thinks he's seen it in a book. It is said that their owners control strong magic. They are cruel and treacherous. All people are afraid of them. He understands that these are demons. The girl confirms his words and coming closer, says that he guessed right away. The guy introduces himself as Ruiziabadi and says that this is the first time he has seen such horns. The girl notices that he is not afraid of demons. The guy thinks a little, The guy remembers that he was told that demons are dangerous and that they can eat him, but surprisingly they do not scare him. He thinks it's because they're so beautiful. The girl is embarrassed by Rui's words. She tries to calm herself down, thereby presenting herself as a Destarosa. She was just praised for the first time in several tens of thousands of years. Guy, I'm sorry for such a surprise. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by the voice of another girl, saying that the guy is a poor simpleton. The girl with the tail and wings says that the guy would look at her too. She notices that she has wings and a tail. He doesn't know who she is. The guy begins to introduce himself as Ruizia, and then asks the girl to introduce herself. The girl does not like his manners, but she really likes the courage to be welcomed. She presents herself as a representative of the strongest race. She is the main dragon, namely the 7th Dragon Queen. Rui is discouraged and surprised by her title. Rui will remember that dragons are considered the strongest race on Earth. Among all the dragons, the black dragons are considered the strongest. The girl was a little embarrassed and says that she has not been so surprised for a long time. The girl says that since he was so surprised, does he know who this girl standing behind Rui is? Rui stands in disbelief. The girl came to her senses and says that she has not introduced herself properly yet. She is the one who rules over darkness and house, namely the 66th Demon Queen Destarosa Satanikia Nodens. The guy is shocked that this woman is the Demon Queen. He asks the girls again that they are the Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen. It seems to the girls that the guy does not really understand the whole situation. Destarosa says that the guy does not see her as the Dragon King because she is beautiful, to which the Dragon Queen says that Destarosa is the Demon Queen. She doesn't understand why she's so embarrassed in front of a guy. The Demon Queen asks the Dragon Queen to be silent, to which she begins to appear at her. The guy thinks that they are friends in this way. After a while, the girls were exhausted from shouting at each other. The Dragon Queen says she will show her real self. The Demon Queen says she came up with a good idea. Both girls begin to be covered with an aura of different colors. The girls were completely covered with a colored aura and shone in front of Ruya. The Demon Queen's clothes are gradually starting to evaporate. The Dragon Queen's clothes also start to evaporate. The guy is shocked by such a strong flow of magic. He understands that these two were not lying in truth. The Demon Queen changed her attire to a more revealing one, and she also got wings. The Dragon Queen has turned into a real dragon. They both stand and look at the guy. Steam comes out of the dragon's mouth. The Demon Queen smiles, striking an attractive pose. They greet the guy. Rui looks at these girls arriving in shock. The girls say that he has fallen into their sealed endless hell. The guy remembers that 300 years ago, a legendary hero named Ogre was born. He was over 3 meters tall, and also had an amazing talent for magic, fencing, and had a character full of love. With all this, he saved people who had nothing, and after he defeated the Demon King and the Dragon King, he suddenly disappeared. The guy says that this is the legend he was told. The guy looks at the girls and thinks that they are sealed in this place. Rui still doesn't understand why they weren't defeated, namely sealed. He thinks they were so strong that it was impossible to defeat them, so they were sealed. After a while, he denies his thoughts. His body is trembling with excitement, and beads of sweat stand out on his face. The guy says that the first thing he needs to think about is how to get out of this place, and assumes that these two girls know how to do it. Suddenly, these girls pay attention to Rui. He asks them how to get out of here, to which the girls look at him with incomprehension. The Demon Queen clears her throat a little and starts laughing, saying that the guy is very funny. The Demon Queen says that he can be understood, but it would be better for him to give up quickly, because there is no way out of this place. The guy is shocked by the words of the Demon Queen. The guy does not understand why it is impossible to get out of this place and thinks that they will all stay here until they go to the next world. The Dragon Queen says that if they had the opportunity to get out, they would have done it long ago. The Dragon Queen walks up to Rui and bends down a little. She asks to look at her body, as there is a magic circle on it. The guy is embarrassed by what he saw. Suddenly, the guy's face changes. The girl says that this is the seal that the hero put on them. This seal on her chest starts to glow. Because of this seal, their souls were connected to this place. But even if you tear up the space, you can't get out of here. The guy decides to check the presence of the seal on his chest too. The guy says that there is no magic circle on his chest. At this moment, the Demon Queen is surprised. She runs up to Rui and starts undressing him, simultaneously looking for this magic circle. She searches for this circle on her back, and then searches for it on her feet, saying that it may be hidden in an invisible place. The girl realized that there really was no magic circle. The Dragon Queen doesn't understand why the guy ended up here without a seal. The guy says he just fell into a hole. The Demon Queen thought for a bit. She is embarrassed, and says that everything has become clear to her. Most likely, the hero's magic did not work on the guy. but he got here because of an accident. It's possible that the guy can get out of this place. The guy comes to his senses and starts asking the Demon Queen again. He says he will do anything to get out of this place. The Dragon Queen waves her ears a little, and the Demon and Dragon Queen ask the guy a little with embarrassment. The guy covers himself with his hands looking at the girls, who are clearly up to something. The girl says there's only one way to get out of here, namely, to open a hole in this space and get out of this place on your own. The guy repeats the words of the Demon Queen. The guy says he can't do it because he doesn't know how to use magic. The girl says that this does not mean that he cannot use it at all. The guy does not understand how in this case he can learn to use it. The girl says that first they will train him to increase the amount of his magical power. The guy repeats the words of the Demon Queen. She says magic is like a muscle that needs to be used to the end. When it is restored, it must be used again to the end. The guy doesn't understand the words of the Demon Queen. The guy says that if you use magic to the very end, then because of the lack of magic, he will be able to go to the next world. The girl confirms his words and says that there is no other way. The Demon Queen says he'll have to be on edge a lot. She thinks that in 500 years something can come out of him. The guy is shocked by the words of the Demon Queen. Rui says that this will be the end for him, to which the Dragon Queen asks him to calm down. Time flows differently in this space. A year in this space is equal to a year in his world. The guy assumes that if he trains for 500 years in this dimension, then only 500 days will pass in the real world, to which the Dragon Queen confirms his words. The girl says that this idea sounds good, because thanks to their training, he will be able to get out of this place. In return, he will help them get out of this place. The guy is a little worried and asks if he has the right to abandon this idea, to which the girls refuse and smile sweetly at him. The guy falls to the floor from exhaustion. He says he's going to die now. The Dragon Queen says that the guy was completely drained. A few hours ago, the Demon Queen said that from today on, they will teach the guy their magic. Rui thanks them for their help, to which the Demon Queen thanks him in return. The Demon Queen suggests that you start training anyway. She has already said, but repeats again, that it will take about 500 years for Rui to learn everything. The guy asks the Demon Queen that the Dragon Queen told him that 1 year in this place is equal to 1 day in his world, to which the Demon Queen says that this is true, since she checked everything with magic. Rui sighs with relief. He understands that the headman, who raised him instead of his parents, will miss him because of his absence. Rui understands that when he gets out of this place, he will definitely meet with him. The guy decides to train and says that he will try with everything. The girl laughs a little and is embarrassed by Rui's words. She puts her hand on his head and says he's a good boy, smiling sweetly along the way. The guy looks at her with admiration. He imagines this situation as if it's his mother stroking his head and telling him he's a good boy. He says it's a warm feeling, like from mom. He had even forgotten that this girl was a demon. The girl warns the guy and immediately apologizes for the fact that the guy can really go to the next world. The Dragon Queen tells the guy that he has almost died. At that moment, the Demon Queen was saying that he didn't have a shred of magic. The Dragon Queen says that the Demon Queen teaches him well. The Dragon Queen says that she will now take care of his training. The guy is scared of her words, as he has just experienced a hilarious workout for himself. The guy says that he will definitely go to the next world, to which the girl says that he should not be afraid. They will not practice magic, but the girl will teach him the techniques of Qigong. The guy doesn't understand her words. The girl says that Qigong used to be called Odo. Thanks to her, the power hidden in the body, although not as strong as magic, is not weaker than it. Rui will have the power to resist dragons if he trains himself. The guy admires the words of the Dragon Queen. The girl says that the Qigong technique is called the Qigong exercise system. There are 9 exercises divided into attacking and defensive. Having learned everything, Rui will be able to overcome any obstacles. Rui admires the words of the Dragon Queen. The guy says if it's such a cool technique, then why don't they use it? The girl notices the guy's words. He doesn't understand why people don't use such technology. The girl says that they do not use this technique, as it is a complex technique. The guy was very depressed. The guy understands that this is the whole answer of the Dragon Queen, but that she confirms his words. The girl speaks differently, saying that the use of magic has spread more easily. Ordinary people can use basic magic without training. For the Qigong technique, you need to train hard. The guy listens to the girl in surprise and says that it will be as difficult for him as magic. The girl confirms his words. She says that talent is not needed to learn Qigong techniques. You only need painstaking training, and that will be enough. Everything became clear to the guy. He will try hard, and the girl will start his training. The girl looks at the guy with enthusiasm. She thinks she said that talent is not needed, but the ability to remember is needed. She wonders how many years it will take a guy to master this technique. The guy is determined. The Dragon Queen looks at him with delight. The Demon Queen says that there will be the same program for a week, and then they will try to meet it in less than 500 years. The Dragon Queen says that the guy needs to be taught techniques faster than he can learn something from the Demon Queen. She says they will start by feeling the energy. Rui confirms her words. The guy has been in endless hell for 10 years. He uses a whirlwind spell, and he's pretty good at it. He turns to Testaroda and asks how he did it, to which she says that he has something to work on and asks him to concentrate. The guy agrees with her words. It seems to the girl that the guy has become a little magician. She trains him like in Sparta, but he didn't make a single squeak. She thinks that all people are like him. He has run out of magic power for today. The girl says that training is over for today, to which the guy says that he is fine. The guy says that he tried very hard to get to this point and he doesn't have time to rest. The guy asked her to give him more practice. The girl thinks that he has developed an attachment to the Force, which can be called unhealthy. The girl realized that she had overdone his training. She addresses him by name and says that he really can be called the lowest class magician among people. She takes his hands and tells him to know that his efforts are not in vain. The guy is excited and confused by the girl's words. The girl passes him a magic wand through her hand. She then asks about the magic channels, to which he says he knows about them. The Demon Queen says that people who don't have magic abilities have a very small magic channel, so she can't convey much to her. If the channel is not used, it may degrade. That is, if you don't use magic, then the guy won't be able to use it anymore. The girl confirms his words. The girl says that if he trains, then her magic will pass to him. The guy looks at all this in surprise and fascination. The girl says that all this shows that Rui's magical channels are expanded than those of ordinary people. She says the guy got stronger because he trained without feeling sorry for himself. His efforts are not in vain. The guy immediately changes his face, to which the girl is interested in his health. She doesn't understand why the guy is so embarrassed. Rui has tears coming out. He says he's fine, because he just feels good. The guy says that his efforts are not in vain, and he realized that he was glad that he met with them. He addresses the Demon Queen as his little sister and thanks her. The girl did not react to Rui's words in any way. Rui apologizes for such a mistake. The girl was shocked by Rui's words, after which blood flowed from her nose. The guy doesn't understand what happened to the Demon Queen and thinks it was some kind of illness, to which the Dragon Queen suddenly appears and asks the guy to leave her alone. The Dragon Queen tells the guy to rest and asks him to start her training after the rest. Sweat was running down his hands, which were on the floor. There was a report of numbers 98, 99. For the 100th time, the guy did the last push-up with a rock on his back. The girl stops the guy and asks him to rest. The guy agrees with her. The girl says that the guy has the results of training. Muscle strength didn't just grow, and it took him only 10 years to master Qigong. Rui was able to feel the Kai in himself. The girl has something to worry about. She turns to the guy who is doing push-ups. She says the guy started training without her knowledge. She warned the guy that he shouldn't overdo it. The guy says he's still weak and needs to train more. The girl asks him again and says that his body is no worse than others. The guy says this can't be happening. Rui says he is slower than the others and still weak. Rui turns to the girl and says that she is strong, therefore she cannot understand him. Everything became clear to the girl. The girl thinks that Rui is insecure. Something needs to be done about it. The Dragon Queen takes the guy by the hand and says he thinks wrong. She asks to look at her body. She says the guy is trying and getting stronger. The girl says that the fact that Rui considered himself weak means that he simply did not know how to use his body. The guy checks with the girl. The Dragon Queen says that the guy regenerates quickly. She tells him to be grateful because he was born a strong guy. The guy is embarrassed and tears roll down from his eyes. He confirms the girl's words. The guy says he's fine. Then he asks the Dragon Queen what her parents were like. The girl says that her parents died before she began to realize herself. She doesn't remember their faces, but she was told that her parents were outstanding dragons. The guy was upset by the girl's words. The Dragon Queen asks the guy not to think about it. She also has a strong body, received from her parents. The guy was even more upset by these words. He bumps into the girl and starts hugging her. The girl is confused by the guy's actions and does not understand why he did it. She does not understand what he is doing, to which the guy says that the girl also tried a lot. The girl calms down and snuggles closer to Rui. She is embarrassed by such actions. She pats the guy on the head. The guy finally calmed down and apologizes for such actions. The guy realizes that the girl was the same as him, so he won't whine anymore. The girl says that the guy says quite audacious things, but continues to keep in the same spirit. After resting, the Dragon Queen will teach him some techniques. The Demon Queen looks at these two with affection and says that everything worked out for them. The girl laughs a little and says that she will have to try too. After a while, the 100th year of endless hell comes. The guy activates the power of Qigong and applies 5 techniques. He uses the technique of the big scarlet waterfall. He clenches his hand into a fist from where red sparks are coming. He makes a swing and sets everything on fire. The guy is proud that he was able to do it. He turns to the Dragon Queen, to which she praised the guy for his efforts. The girl thinks that Rio is from the Dragon Queen. At first she thought that the disrespectful guy was giving out nicknames to everyone, but in fact the girl did not have a name and the guy decided to come up with it for her. The girl says that she has been the Dragon Queen since birth. Everyone was looking at her titles, and no one saw her as a person. However, it was Rui who fixed it. The guy says he fixed what the girl assigned him yesterday. The girl confirms his words and says that the force of size has become something with something. The girl says it's not so bad to have a name, but there is one thing, the girl is happy and praises the guy for having learned half of the attacking and defensive techniques. He learned them quickly enough in 100 years. She pounces on the guy and starts pulling his hair. The guy confusedly turns to the girl and says that he has been thinking about one moment for a long time. The guy says that when the girl touched him, his heart began to beat faster. The girl is very embarrassed by such words. The girl does not understand his actions, to which the guy says that, unlike him, she is soft and also smells delicious. The guy says she's the perfect woman from his point of view. The girl is embarrassed and objects why he dared to get excited from such a poor body. The girl shyly chases the guy away for his actions. The guy thinks that the girl didn't understand anything. The Dragon Queen is still moving away from the actions taken by the guy. The girl says she is very embarrassed by the guy. Suddenly her shouts are the Queen of Demons. She asks the Dragon Queen to come to her as she needs to discuss something about training. The Demon Queen says they've just finished training. At this point, the guy says he's going to practice on his own. The Dragon Queen says she didn't think they would be so friendly with the Demon Queen. They used to fight for their lives, but to be sent to the next world. The Demon Queen confirms her words and says that it was a long time ago. The Dragon Queen says that from the moment the guy appeared here, everything began to change. The Demon Queen confirms the girl's words. She didn't think that such a boring pastime in this space would become so much fun. She couldn't imagine it until this guy showed up. The guy turns to the Demon Queen and says that he has a question about magic. She agrees with the guy. The girl says that she asked him not to call him that anymore. The guy is confused and does not understand what to call her next time. The guy is very embarrassed. The guy addresses the Demon Queen as a sister. The girl is very embarrassed and asks the guy to start training faster. She falls into his arms. They both get embarrassed, and the guy thanks her. After a while, the guy starts using magic. The guy is determined and pronounces the spell of the Pillar of Fire. A pillar of fire of incredible size appears from the guy's hand. The girl is glad that the guy has more magical power. She says it can't be compared to what it was 100 years ago. The guy is really getting better, but at the same time the breakup is getting closer. Rui turns to his sister and asks him if she saw his actions. Suddenly the guy is surprised. The Demon Queen is starting to get embarrassed and cry. The girl laughs a little and says that they thought that the one whose name is the strongest and oldest would cry in front of a man like Rui. The guy thinks it's all because of him. The girl confirms his words and asks him to think about himself. The Demon Queen hugs the guy to her chest. They are both embarrassed by such actions. The guy asks the Demon Queen to tell him what the girl is saying so that he can think for himself. The girl is a little embarrassed and laughs, saying that she will joke like that more than once. The girl tells him to rely on his little sister, and she will definitely bring him back to his world, even if it is a breakup forever. After a while, the 300th year of endless hell comes. A guy using a dark flame spell. It slowly begins to envelop many guys, and then turns into a big circle. The girls are watching the guy closely. The Demon Queen laughs and says that he succeeded. The Dragon Queen notices that this is dark magic, and it seems like it can only be used by a demon of the highest rank. The Demon Queen says that every day, a little bit of her magic power got into the guy, and he was able to start using it. She clarifies that the guy needed not only magical power, but also hard training. The Demon Queen didn't think the guy would get to this point. She admires his rapid growth. The Demon Queen turns to the Dragon Queen and asks how they are doing, to which she says that she has the same as the Demon Queen. The Dragon Queen says that the guy was able to master all the techniques of Qigong. An ordinary person would not be able to master it the way he did. The girl is embarrassed and says she is proud of her work. The guy turns to Rio's sister and asks her if she saw his actions. The Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen praise the guy and say that he has become even better. The Demon Queen says it's late and suggests everyone go to bed. Suddenly, Something disturbed the guy. He screamed in some kind of pain. He falls to the floor and the girls run up to him. The girls look at the guy in amazement. A military mark appears on the guy's chest. The guy is undermined and says that this mark appears only on the bodies of professionals, for which the girls congratulate him. The guy thanks the girls for their efforts and asks if they have the same label. The Demon Queen confirms his words and says that she is showing it for the first time. The Demon Queen says she has a royal mark. It's better than a military one. This mark is proof that a person deserves to be called a king. She says that the war mark used to have the meaning of the Demon King. The Dragon Queen shows her mark, which is located on her arm. This mark means the Dragon King. The Dragon Queen says that humans are exceptions to the rules, but many times those who have this mark become kings. The guy admires the dead queens of demons and dragons and asks them what is written on these marks. The girls look at this label and are very surprised. This mark means that the guy is a warrior of demons and dragons. This means that the guy has the power of both dragons and demons. The Dragon Princess says that this is only in legends, and she did not think that Rui would become like this. She praises the guy, thereby hugging him to her. The guy asks the girls again. Rio says that this is not the case and that the label is not finished yet. She says that before he calls himself that he needs her to shine silver. A determined guy says he just needs to train more. He says he will try his best. The girls did not react to this in any way. They are confused, but at the same time saddened. The Dragon Queen turns to the guy and says that his body has reached the limit of what it can be at his age. She says it means that as long as the guy is here, he won't get better. They specify that they do not age in the endless hell. The guy was a little sad. The guy says that all he has to do is get out of here. The Demon Queen says that the current one will definitely be able to get out of here. But first, they will rest today and try to do it tomorrow. The guy stands aside sadly. The girls didn't say a word. After some time, a house appears, from which smoke is coming. The guy is lying quietly on a warm and beautiful pink bed. He wakes up after a long sleep and rubs his eyes. Suddenly, Fonda touches something. A woman's screech is heard. Rui slowly opens his eyes. He is greeted by the Demon Queen, who was also in his bed. The girl did not think that the guy would start touching her from this place. The girl says she is surprised. The guy turns to his sister and does not understand why she is in his bed. Behind the guy is the Dragon Queen, who is creeping closer and closer to the guy. The Dragon Queen guy is confused. The girl asks the guy that he will not be able to escape from the nets of the Queen and the demons and the Queen of Dragons. Guys don't understand what's left of the girls and why they're dressed like that. The Demon Queen says she has discussed some issues with Rio, whether they can do anything for his farewell. They gave him the power and all the knowledge, but that's not all they can give him. The guy looks at the girls in embarrassment and does not understand what kind of power he is talking about. The girls turn to the guy and ask him if he wants them one time. The Demon Queen kisses a guy on the lips. They are both embarrassed by such actions. Sighs can be heard from their kiss. The Demon Queen kisses Rui passionately, pressing her breasts against him. She says she loves Rai and just adores him. The guy looks at these beautiful girls with bewilderment, excitement, and embarrassment. The Dragon Queen is the next to join in, who also passionately kisses Rui on the lips. She is dressed in a very attractive outfit that reveals almost her entire body. They finished their kiss. Rui and the Dragon Queen are greatly embarrassed by such a passionate kiss. The girl asks the guy about his arousal. Along the way, a few drops of saliva fall from her mouth. The Demon Queen notices that Rio is blushing to the ears, to which she appears and asks the Demon Queen again. The Demon Queen says it's her first time, and she can't help herself. The guy looks at the girls in embarrassment. He is very embarrassed at the sight of two girls sitting on his bed in very revealing outfits and arguing with each other. The girls look at each other and pay attention to Rui. They both attack the guy, which knocks him down on the bed. Rui is embarrassed by such actions. He looks at the girls and tells them to be gentle with him, to which they refuse. Even the house jumps from such actions. The company stands and silently looks at each other. The Demon Queen asks the guy if he remembers how to get out of here. She clarifies and says that if Rui forgot to ask something, then let him ask now, while there is an opportunity. The guy says he has no questions and addresses the Demon Queen as a sister. The guy says that when he first got here, he didn't even know what would come of it. We were able to do all the training that almost sent the guy to the next world, because these girls were next to him. The guy says that he had fun with them. Along the way, he remembers moments from training. But now, those days are over. He's leaving here today. The guy with the burning turns to the girls and says that he is already leaving. He begins to use his power. Something blue with blue shades appears in front of him. Suddenly, He is stopped by the Dragon Queen Rio. She holds her hand up to her ear. She hands her earring to Rui and tells him to use it. The guy notices that this earring is Rio's property. Rui took the earring in his hand. The girl asks the guy to direct magic power into this earring. The guy immediately gets down to business. He clenched his hand into a fist where the earring was. This earring will start to glow. Gradually, something similar to a yellow cane with the same glow appears from Rui's hand. Then a golden-colored sword appears from this cane. The guy notices that he is holding a sword in his hands. Rui feels incredible power from the sword. He is a little shocked that it is a dragon sword. Rio says it's a relic of her father. This sword is made from her father's fangs. This is a legendary sword, and there are only 2 of them in the world. The girl smiles and says that she is giving this sword to Rui. She says that this is the only memory of her father and asks Rui to use it with caution. Rui is shocked by Rio's words. The guy refuses and says he can't accept such a thing, after which Rio immediately shuts him up with his finger. Rio interrupts the guy and says that he is giving him the sword for a reason. She says that if Rui wants to refuse, then he must understand his actions. The guy agrees and says he will treasure it. Rio rejoices and then wants to explain how to use this sword. The guy is determined and says that he will definitely succeed. His gaze is full of confidence. He holds the sword tightly in his hands. He accelerates and makes a swing. He jumps up and shouts a dimension incision spell under the wave. The sword plunges into space, causing a crack in this dimension. He removes the sword from the chip, after which a split appears in that place. The guy stands in front of him and just keeps silent, looking at the split. Tears come to Rai's eyes. He says he's ready to hit the road. The girls immediately break out of their seats. They run up to the guy and hug him hard, to which Rui hugs them back. The Demon Queen wishes Rui a good journey and forgive him to be careful. The Dragon Queen cries while in Rui's arms and tells him to do his best. She says they will always be waiting for him. The guy can't hold back his emotions and says that this is really the end. The guy remembers the moments when he had fun with these beautiful girls, but alas, he needs to leave. Rui says it will be much better to live with them outside. The guy makes a promise that he will definitely rescue the girl from this place. He asks them to wait for him at the moment of his absence. The girls silently accompany Rui, who runs towards the split. He runs into the split and begins to glow turquoise. The girls are standing behind him. The split is gradually starting to decrease. The Demon Queen stretches out her hand after the departed guy. Rio says that now they have been alone for the last 300 years. She feels like everything is back to normal. The girl turns to the Demon Queen and asks her if she misses Rui. The Demon Queen turns abruptly and grabs the Dragon Queen by the shoulders. The Demon Queen bursts into tears and says she is lonely. She falls to her knees in front of Rio, hugging her along the way. Rio asks the girl not to cry. The Demon Queen is saddened by the guy's departure, to which Rio again asks the girl not to cry. Rio could not have imagined that such a strong demon king would be such a crybaby, for which she asks Rio for forgiveness. Then the Demon Queen asks Rio if she misses Rui, which makes Rio a little stupefied. She says it would be a lie if she said she didn't miss him, but with a smile on her face, she says she believes in Rui. If you compare it with loneliness before Rui appeared, then Rio is not so lonely anymore. The Demon Queen turns to Rio and abruptly jumps on her, saying that she is cute. Rio falls into a stupor and does not understand the words of the Demon Queen. Rio is scared by the actions of the Demon Queen. The Demon Queen came up with an idea. She turns to Rio and offers her a cuddle if she is so lonely. The Demon Queen looks at Rio with a confused face and an excited look. Rio is scared and surprised by the actions of the Demon Queen. The Demon Queen jumps on Rio and starts kissing her on the forehead, touching her everywhere along the way. Rio turns to Rui and asks him to come back as soon as possible. After some time, Rui finds himself in the space between dimensions. Rui thinks about his sister and Rio. The memories bring tears to his eyes. He tries not to think about it by waving his head in different directions. The guy says that no matter how many decades it takes him, he will definitely save them. Rui notices a split that glows golden. Rui takes a sword in his hand and, making a swing, casts a dimensional incision spell. He steps into this split. A bright light envelops him, which makes Rui squint. Suddenly, he finds himself in the forest, where birds were pleasantly sitting and chirping on a tree branch. They list what they saw, namely trees, grass, and the smell of the earth. He realizes that he has finally returned like this. He screams with such joy, simultaneously scaring away the birds that were peacefully sitting on the tree. The guy realizes that he should not stand still, but first he needs to return to the village. He doesn't remember which way he needs to go. Suddenly, Rui had a great idea. He wants to climb a tree. He pushes off the ground and unexpectedly jumps very high. Suddenly, Rui is surprised. A beautiful landscape opens up in front of him. The sun was shining brightly, which illuminated the village, which was located in the forest. The sea was visible from a distance, and further from the village there were mountains. Ruya admires the beauty of the village and the sea and says that he lived in such a small world. He lands on the ground and says that he needs to save his sister and Rio. Rio is not sure that he will succeed. The guy says that the girls themselves are less confident in these actions. Ruya is determined, so he must act. After some time, Ruya arrives in the village. He opens the door and shouts that he's finally back. He looks around and realizes that nothing has changed in this house. Ruya sees a sheathed knife, several coins and money, a map of the area, and a lantern standing and lying on the table. He says that this will be enough to take. He puts his things in a bag and says that he also wants to go to a place. Ruya comes to a clearing where a stone stood and a breeze blew, which carried away the leaves. A guy with a very polite expression on his face apologizes for not seeing his mom and dad for a long time. There was a flower next to the stone. The guy says that the next time he comes to them, he wants to introduce someone, namely his sister and Rio. He says they're good girls. Suddenly someone interrupts him. He is addressed by an old man who was going about his business and suddenly came across and recognized Ruiz. Rui recognizes the old man and addresses him as an elder. The elder begins to ask Rui where he has been all this time, to which he says that a lot has happened during his absence. He's sorry for the sudden disappearance, and he's glad that they've met again. The elder is glad that Ruya is alive and invites him to go to him. The old man will give the guy something warm. Ruya clenches her hand into a fist and asks the elder for forgiveness. He creates a fireball above himself and says he needs to go. The elder doesn't understand anything. Ruya thanks the elder for being worried about him. Ruya says that everything is fine with him and that he is no longer weak as he used to be. The elder doesn't know what happened to Rui, but he says his eyes are full of confidence. The old man says he won't stop the guy. He will guard Rui's house and asks him to go about his business. Ruya turns to the elder and thanks him, worshipping in front of him. After some time, Ruya goes about her business walking along the path. Suddenly, a girl with red hair meets him and recognizes the guy. The guy turns around and addresses Elena, saying that he has not seen her for a long time. The girl says she was worried about Rui since he had been gone for over a year. The girl sarcastically says that since Rui has decided to return, it means that he wants to make peace with her. The girl says that she would like to punish the guy for betraying her. She would have incinerated him, but this time she would forgive him. Rui interrupts Elena, saying that she is still the same. He asked her to finally grow up. The girl is confused and is in a little shock from the words spoken by Ruya. She gets mad at Rui and says he needs to be punished. Along the way, she swings for a punch. Ruya looks at her with a calm gaze. Rui just stretches out his hand, thereby stopping the girl's blow. The girl is shocked by Rui's actions and does not understand how he stopped her blow. The guy turns to Elena and says that the girl really sees no one but herself. She doesn't think that others are getting stronger than her. The girl is confused and comes in shock from the words spoken by Ruya. She asks the guy to shut up. She tells Rui to listen only to her. Along the way, she strikes one after another, which Ruya dodges without any problems. The girl is surprised that she could not hit Rui once. The guy uses the power of Qigong using the third technique of the Sernui skill. He kicks the girl in the face. She is shocked by such actions. Elena falls to the ground and says that she is in pain, after which she orders Rui to understand her. Ruya looks at the girl with disgust and says goodbye to her, telling her not to bother others anymore. The guy is gradually leaving the girl. She also continues to lie on the ground. She asks the guy to stop. Elena holds out her hand after Ruya leaves. She says she will definitely make it her own. The guy walks quietly and calmly along the path. The guy thinks a little and says that he is lost. At this moment, he looks at the map with bewilderment and a little excitement, as well as surprise. The guy remembers the moments he spent with the girls. He asked about them what he needed to do when he got out of this endless hell. And at this moment, the demon queen was taking a bath. She says that first the guy needs to collect information about the hero. It is the heroes who know how to remove the magic seal. At that moment, the guy and the girls were taking a bath. They were completely naked about her. The guy understands and says that the hero is a human being and notices that people do not live longer than 100 years. Most likely, the hero has already gone to the next world. Orion thinks a little. Rio says that the hero's blood has not disappeared and that the ogre's relatives or his family still live there. The guy confirms her words and says that he needs to find his grandchildren. The guy stops in place and confirms his own thoughts. He says that in order to learn more, a hero needs to go to a place where there are more people. He has a great idea to go to the capital. The guy explains that Exodoria is the capital of the kingdom of Exador. It is located 3 hours by horse ride from the village of Quebec. This is a country that is fighting for the first place in size on the Chinese mainland. Next, The guy shows the map where the very mainland of the kingdom and the village are located. The guy looks at the map and does not understand where the capital is located. He needs to know where to go. The guy has a great idea. He just needs to find magic. He closes the card and then gets down to business. The guy explains that the search for magic is a technique that demons know. To learn such a technique, you need a lot of magic power, so few people can use it. The guy closes his eyes and concentrates on his strength. The guy says that he needs to imagine that he is expanding his senses. Rui understands that there is probably a lot of magic going on in the capital. Suddenly, something turned him blue. He understands and finds what he was looking for. He feels a huge accumulation of magic. He realized that there is a capital there, and therefore he is going to go there. His gaze is determined, and he feels confident. He uses the Qigong technique. I push off the ground. He casts a flying jump spell. He hit the ground and abruptly flew high, hovering above the ground. Rui admires it. He says that he only jumped a little and already saw so much beauty. He is overflowing with joy. The guy is very pleased to use this technique. With each jump, he overcomes more and more distance. After a while, the guy stops and says that he overdid it a little. He decides to catch his breath a little as sweat is streaming from his head. Suddenly, he notices something. He sees a large number of people standing at the gate, which is guarded by guards. The guy notices all this and thinks that there must be an entrance there. The guy standing at the end of the queue does not understand what is being searched there. It's his first time going to the capital, so he's a little worried. The guards gradually summon each of the people standing in line in turn. Suddenly, the guy is asked to provide a migration card. At this point, the Rui becomes stupefied. They understand what kind of migration card we are talking about. He's asking himself again. At this point, the guard asks the next one to go through the security check. The guy does not know what to do because he was not told that he needed a migration card. The guard is asked to pass the next one. At this point, it's Rui's turn. The guard stares at the guy. Rui thinks he's already been burned. The guy is very worried and is trying to somehow bring this situation out. He understands that no matter what he does, he will already be caught. Suddenly, a guard turns to him and asks him that the guy is most likely going to enter the Magic Academy. Ruya is a little shocked by the guard's questions. Ruya doesn't understand anything completely. Sweat is running down his cheeks from his forehead from excitement. He doesn't understand anything. The guard starts pushing the guy and telling him to hurry up as the exam is about to start. Ruya asks the guard if he can go through, to which he gives a positive answer. The guard wishes Rui good luck and asks him to smash everyone there. The guy didn't understand anything, but thank God that he managed to get through. He clutches at his heart and breathes heavily from this stress. After walking a little further, he admires what he saw. He sees the capital in all its glory. There are a lot of people walking on the streets. There are big, tall buildings on the streets. In the distance, you can see a bridge where people walk. People come up to the counters and start asking about the assortment. There is a lot of noise and uproar in the streets. The guy notices a large number of people and says that he was told similar things. But in fact, it seemed more than he imagined. The guy comes closer to the signs and begins to examine them. The guy thinks a little. Looking at these signs, he sees that the road that runs in the middle leads to a residential area. To the right of it, where the sea is, there is a trading area. People are also walking briskly on it. There is a bridge over which you can walk and cross to another part of the street. Ruya notices that the most magical academy has become located on the left side of the campus. The entrance to the academy was decorated with an arch, above which hung the coat of arms of the academy. There was a tall house next to the entrance. The guy thinks about the academy and says that he always wanted to try to get there, but now he's not up to it. The guy looks at the academy admiringly. He gradually begins to search for information. He thinks a little because he doesn't know where this information can be found. He says that she is usually recognized in bars, but if he enters there, he will be kicked out because he is still a child. He decides to go to the guild and knows the information there. The guild is also filled with many different people. The guy says if he gets into the Adventurers Guild, he will be able to travel to different countries, as well as earn money. The guy decides to destroy 2 birds with 1 stone at the same time. This is where he decides his actions. Rui decides to become an adventurer. His spirit is full of determination and his eyes are full of confidence. Suddenly, someone grabs him by the shoulder and shouts at him. It was an elderly woman who says that the academy is in the wrong direction. The guy doesn't know this woman and doesn't know who she is. He tries to say something, but the woman interrupts him. The woman says that she understands that the guy is afraid of failing the exam, does not run away from the problems, and therefore drags him along. Ruya tries to resist, but the woman turned out to be stronger than him. She pulls the guy away by the scruff of his neck and says she'll take him to the academy. The guy is at a loss to understand anything. He does not know and does not understand what will happen to him now. After a while, The guy talks about the Royal Magic Academy of Froy. It is made in order to compete with the Empire, which has been growing rapidly in recent years. The purpose of the Grow Up Academy is to educate gifted children and use them for their needs. At this moment, the woman tells the guy that he can take the exam without presenting documents. The guy doesn't understand why this woman tells him everything. After some time, they reach the final goal. The guy looks ahead in surprise. He is fascinated by what he has seen. The woman imagines the building in front of her as a magic academy. It was a 2-story building with tiles on the floor and a standing fountain next to it. The woman pushes the guys, telling him to go to the counter to fill out the paperwork. The guys are uncomfortable with the woman's move, but he agrees with her decision. The woman wishes good luck to the guy. Ruya understands that there is no way we can get out of this situation. The guy enthusiastically looks at the building and says that most likely this is his fate. Ruya, try to pass at least the exam. The guy who was standing at the front desk tells Rui that he was almost late. Ruya laughs a little because he is embarrassed, and takes the sheet and starts filling it out. After some time, he gets to the shooting range. The guy notices that the targets are floating with the help of magic. A man is addressing Rui. This guy tells Rui to take the magic test first. He says that you can use absolutely any magic. He tells Ruya to break as many targets as possible in a certain amount of time. He agrees with him. The guy notices that some girl used a spell in a whirlwind. The target didn't even stagger. The guy notices and says that even at first glance, it is clear that this girl is incompetent. He thinks that most likely it's the girls who were unlucky with the teacher. He feels a little sorry for this girl. The guy says that everyone has more talent than him. After a while, the examiner calls the next one, namely Rui's baddie. The guy responds immediately. The examiner starts checking the guy's strength. Rui stands in front of the targets. Ruya admits that he wasn't going to take the exam seriously. A crowd of children begins to discuss and publish many questions. Ruya say that if he doesn't show himself now, he will disgrace 2 of his teachers. The guy is determined, and therefore he will give his best 100%. The examiner confirms the guy's readiness and announces the start. Ruya stretches out his hand and begins to cast a spell that creates a fire in front of him. He created the Flame Pillar spell. A huge fireball formed in front of him. After that, the guy launches this fireball forward which burns the whole earth. All the children who were standing in the crowd were shocked by what was happening. They look at Ruya and don't understand what kind of magic he used. They notice that the smoke has cleared away and see a picture in which Rudder is standing in front of the destroyed land. The children were greatly shocked by the actions taking place, which caused some of them to lose consciousness and fall to the floor. In front of them was a ruined and set on fire land. The guy agrees with his thoughts and says that he did a great job. He clenches his hand into a fist and praises himself. Ruya turns around and addresses the examiner. Ruya notices that the examiner is lying on the floor unconscious. He is interested in his health. Ruya apologizes and turns to a girl standing next to her and asks her about admission to the academy. The girl arrives in shock from what she saw, frightened by the harsh words of the guy. Excited, she says that he will most likely be accepted and asks him to move on to the next exam. Ruya thanks by bending down in front of her. The examiner girl says that there are a lot of strange applicants this year. The guy is a little excited because everyone is looking at him. A crowd of children are whispering among themselves. Looking at Ruya, suddenly a kid comes up to him and greets him. The boy introduces himself as Yuri and asks Ruya to talk to him. Ruya admires the guy he saw. We don't understand why he needs him. Ruya is introduced as Ruizia. He is pleased to meet Yuri, to which he reciprocates. Ruya turns to the guy on you, which he says that you can contact him on you, because they are all applicants here. Ruya stops worrying a little and turns to Yuri. Yuri says the guy is doing a great job. Yuri himself is dressed in beautiful clothes and has white hair with turquoise eyes. Ruya is shocked by Yuri's smile. I think that all the girls are probably running after this guy. Yuri apologizes for his suddenness. Yuri turns to the guy and says that he has heard that there is an applicant with rather unusual results. He was wondering what he looks like. Ruya remembers the exam she passed and is a little embarrassed. Yuri says that he thought that the girl would be better this year, but as it turned out, they would become such a dark horse. Ruya asks Yuri what kind of girl he is talking about. Yuri tells the guy that he thought everyone knew about this girl. Ruya, tell me that he actually only recently got here. Yuri thinks about it and asks the guy again. Everything becomes clear to him, followed by silence. Ruya shouts at the guy, to which he apologizes and asks to return to the topic. Ruya asks Yuri about that girl who he thinks is incredibly strong. Yuri confirms his words and says that she is not just strong. He says that this girl is the granddaughter of the ogre who is the hero. Ruya is in a small stupor from hearing Yuri's words. With a determined face, He asks Yuri again about the hero's granddaughter. This is my granddaughter studying here. The guy starts coughing and beating his chest, thereby trying to calm down. Ruya asks Yuri about the appearance of this girl, to which he says that Ruya is apparently interested in her. Yuri says that the guy should take his time because that's how she's coming here. After some time, a girl suddenly appears in front of the guys, who slipped a little from her speed. She had pink hair and also had a sword on her belt. She was wearing a rather short skirt and stockings. The girl clears her throat a little, stopping her breathing. She addresses Rui by calling him that. She gets into an extravagant pose and is a little embarrassed at the sight of the guy. The girl turns to Rui, call him the same applicant. She stands in a rather extravagant pose and is a little embarrassed at the sight of a guy. Well, the girl says that the guy looks pathetic enough that he doesn't understand her words. Yuri stops her, calling her Eudelia and asking her not to say that anymore. She greets Yuri and does not understand why he is with this guy. Yuri apologizes for not introducing Rui. He introduces the girl as the granddaughter of the legendary ogre hero Charlotte Judelia. The guy was a little wary of Yuri's words. He asks his thoughts again. Ruya says that she has also admired heroes since childhood, but the Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen, whom she considers the hearth of all evil, turned out to be kind enough. Not at all like they were said in the legend. And it was these two girls that the hero imprisoned in an endless hell. He pays attention to the granddaughter of that very hero. The girl behaves quite audaciously. She says that she really is his granddaughter, so she will not let him take her place, simultaneously addressing Rui, calling him a coward and a weakling. The guy is at a loss from such words. Ruya is really shocked by the girl's words, and he thinks she has excellent student syndrome. Yuri says that the exam has already ended, so nothing can be changed. The girl did not think that Yuri's head was working so badly. He takes something like a glove out of his chest and says that everything is simple here. Yuri notices what he saw and is a little shocked. Ruya calmly looks at what is happening, addressing this girl. The girl threw the glove on the floor. Ruya realizes that this girl wants to have a duel with him. All the children in the crowd start whispering to each other. The girl puts up a bet saying that if she wins, the guy will refuse admission. The girl also says that if the guy wins, she will become his slave. Yuri tries to dissuade the guy by saying that it is irrational. Ruya did not respond to his words. Ruya says that he does not need a slave. However, his eyes and soul are determined. He believes that if he wins, he will be able to find out about the hero. Yuri tells the guy that if he picks it up, he will start betting. Ruya picks up the glove and agrees with her. He holds out his gloved hand to her, telling her that he accepts her challenge. She looks at the guy with a malicious smile, showing everyone that she is stronger than him. After a while, they don't come to the arena. Ruya and Charlotte are standing opposite each other. What kind of person does she turn to Yuri, asking him if this duel is worth anything at all? The examiner says that if they are injured, then he will be finished. Yuri addresses the examiner as a teacher and says that he will take full responsibility for himself. In addition, he turns to the teacher and says that he is also interested. They turn their attention to Ruya, who looks resolutely and confidently towards the girl. They agree with each other. Yuri puts all the responsibility on the teacher and tells him to judge this battle. Then the teacher explains the rules. The winner is the one whose opponent surrenders or loses consciousness himself. At this moment, the guy and the girl are facing each other and are resolutely looking at each other. The teacher continues to explain the rules and says that if he considers that the participant cannot continue the fight, then the fight is considered over. At that moment, he was explaining the rules by speaking it all into a mouthpiece. He says in the rules that destruction is prohibited by law, after which the start of the battle is announced. Ruya and Charlotte look at each other with determined looks. The girl laughs a little and says that if the guy admits defeat, the fight will end without injury. Ruya takes a fighting stance at this moment. Lavushka grabs the sword and starts pulling it out of the scabbard. She turns to the guy and forces him to take out a weapon too. Ruya is determined at this moment, but still stands in a fighting stance. Ruya remembers about the weapon. He remembers the moment when the Dragon Queen told him that the Dragon King's sword should only be used in battle when his life was at stake. Ruya must use the sword wisely. At that moment, the guy agreed with her words. They made a promise to each other and swore on their little fingers. The guy understands and says that he can't use the Dragon King's sword right now. The girl smiles maliciously and provokes the guy, saying that does he really think he can defeat her with his bare hands? The girl feels sorry for the guy, but then she changes her mind. She takes a sword in her hand. She introduces herself as the granddaughter of the legendary hero Charlotte Judelia. Her gaze is determined. She also got into a fighting stance. She says she will defeat the guy with all the powers of the great ancestors. After that, she begins her offensive, moving towards the guy. Ruya is determined and is not going to give up. He also took a fighting stance. The girl makes a swing at her partner, She at the same time thinks that most likely the guy wants to go to the next world. She can really send him to the next world. I think that most likely this guy is really weak. At this moment, Ruya uses the Qigong technique. Okay. Use the golden cocoon defensive technique. At this moment, the blade of the sword touches the guy's hand. Ruya does not feel pain as his arm is covered with a protective cocoon. The girl does not understand what is happening. Ruya beat off her sword with his bare hand, namely a sword that can cut steel. She bounced back and is out of the skill board. She asks the guy who he is, to which he replies that he is just Ruizia Batty. He is not a demon king, not a dragon king, not a hero, and not the grandson of a hero. The guy is determined. Ruya says he's just an ordinary hillbilly. The girl does not understand how this guy beat off her sword with his bare hands. They are both facing each other. The girl put out her sword and pointed it at the guy. The guy puts up a defensive stance. I say that he used the golden cocoon technique. This technique differs from the iron cocoon, which makes absolutely everything harder. He says that while gold makes only one place hard, and in terms of rigidity, it is more effective than an iron dragon. The compacted area can be moved safely, so this is a fairly effective technique. The girl asks for more and goes further on the offensive. The guy just stands and looks at the girl's movement. She swings her sword, but the blow was unsuccessful as the guy deflected her blow again. Time after time, the guy deflected her blows. The girl does not understand how he does it, and she does not know who he is at all. She has a better command of the ball than many masters. She decides to change her strategy. Jumping back, she makes a sharp lunge forward. She begins to cast spells, and a swirl of pink flowers begins to appear from her hand. These petals begin to move forward. She casts a spell of petal vines and then directs them towards the guy. The guy notices this and dodges her attack with awkward movements. He dodged non-contact. The girl continues to stand in her place. She notices the guy's good reaction, but the next attack follows. She asks the guy if he can dodge even more petals. She directs these petals forward and casts the spell Petal Storm. At this moment, petals appear from everywhere from behind her back, which quickly heads towards the guy. The teacher notices all this and wants to stop this girl. And at this moment, Yuri interrupts the teacher, which he also pays attention to. He asks the teacher to calm down. He says that the guys still have a lot of hope in their eyes. At this moment, the petals are getting closer and closer with Ruya. He is surprised and amazed by so many petals. He understands that such a large number of petals requires strong magic. After that, he makes a dash and goes to these petals. The girl does not understand why this guy is running to these petals. Ruya lifts off the ground and makes an incredible leap into the sky. He casts a wide flame spell and holds out his hand. At this moment, a wide fiery flame forms in front of the guy, which almost touches the girl. From the effects of this flame, the petals that were heading towards the guy are burned. The girl is in shock from such a strong heat. She doesn't understand why the sword and magic doesn't hit this guy. This is the moment some man orders these two to stop. He turns to Charlotte and says that she is also talented. He says that no one has had a hero mark since the ogre disappeared. He turns to the girl and says that if she tries hard, she will be able to achieve it. The girl, confused and tired, repeats the words of this man. Suddenly, someone turns to this girl, calling her the very granddaughter of the hero. They admire the strength of this girl, and also say that she can become a hero. This group of male guys is clearly up to something. They say that their son also admires the ogre hero. Become a real hero in her survey. She heard their words and was determined. She needs me to train even more to become strong. She clutches the sword in her hand and says that she will not lose by attacking the guy. The guy gets into a defensive stance. The girl swings and screams that she must become a hero. That's why she can't lose. At that moment, a voice shouts for them to finish. The frog struck the last blow in defense of the guy. She looks at the guy in embarrassment, but amazement. The guy looks at the girl a little perplexed. Ruya remembers Elena's words, which she told him that it makes no sense for him to try to be born without talent. Then, he remembers the moment when I addressed the demon princess, and says that he doesn't have time to rest. Then he thought exactly as she thought. Blocking the blow, he regrets that it was difficult for the girls too. The guy says that at this very moment, he will save her the same way they saved him earlier. He repeatedly changes his hands, thereby blocking the girl's blows. The girl jumps up and wants to deliver a striking blow. At this moment, the guy applies the Qigong technique using defensive technique number 5. He uses the golden ball grabbing technique to stop the girl's kick with one hand. He holds the sword with his bare hand and then begins to move it to the left side. The girl, being on the weight, is very surprised by such actions of the guy. She starts screaming and wondering from a little fright. The guy uses the Qigong technique while using the #1 attacking technique. He uses the Meteor Fist College. After that, his hand is charged with magical power. He tries to make a punch by inserting his fist into the side of the girl's face. At this moment, she is in shock from the actions she saw. She realizes that she cannot avoid a collision and says that she is about to turn into a carcass. The girl grabs the sword in her hands and squeezes it tightly. She says she shouldn't lose. The guy uses the Qigong technique and applies the #1 attacking technique, namely the Meteor Fist. The girl looks at what is happening with amazement and incomprehension. She understands her feelings and knows what it's like to lose. The guy tries to carry out a crushing blow to the girl's face. She stops her fist and pepper the face itself. The girl looks at the fist that stopped in front of her in a stupor. She falls to both knees on the ground in fright and with an axe. She says with a convulsive voice that she is alive. The guy is a little tired of such a battle, says that he won, thereby asking the girl if she agrees with this. The girl looks at the guy with admiration and embarrassment. The girl makes some moans and a murmur can be heard from her. The guy doesn't understand these sounds a bit. The girl is powerless and confusedly does not understand why everything happened like this. A murmur can be heard from its rear point. The guy, looking at the girl, is a little confused and does not understand what is happening here. The guys turn around as they hear the crowd whispering. He realizes that they can't see anything. He says that then he can do his little sister's reception. He stretches his hand forward and uses bathroom magic, thereby casting a spell of Dark Son. A black square formed around the team. The crowd doesn't understand what's going on here. This was all being watched by a very strange girl who was dressed in a maid costume. She had pointed ears and red eyes. The guy touches the black squares to make sure that now other people won't see them. She turns to the girl and asks her if she is okay. Secondly, the girl remembered and does not understand why everything turned black around. The guy asks the girl to calm down and says that he just blocked out the lights and sounds with magic. The girl confusedly asks the guy again. This is the first time the girl hears about such magic, but she is not surprised because the guy has a lot of strange tricks in his hands. The guy abruptly sits down next to the girl, which makes her scared and embarrassed. He apologizes for scaring the girl. Some liquid is leaking out from under the girl's skirt. The guy asks the girl to be patient as he will dry everything now. The girl, because of the strong indignation, asks the guy to stop. After a while, the guy finished his business and says that everything is fine now. The confused, excited girl thanks the guy. The girl does not understand why the guy is doing all this, because before that she had said a lot of nasty things to him. The guy asks the girl again with a smile on his face. The guy says that it's all obvious because if a person is in trouble, he needs help. The girl looks at the guy in amazement, and she remembers the moment that she was told that she was the granddaughter of a hero and she should help people. She understands that there is no reason to help people. She doesn't understand how she didn't notice such a simple thing. The girl admits defeat with a little embarrassment. She worships the guy and apologizes for her bad manners. The cat addresses the guy by name and says that she recognizes that the guy is stronger than her in body and heart. The guy says that he has a lot to strive for, and also praises the girl, who was also strong. He was especially surprised by the last magic. The finger dryer wants to take off its magic. At this moment, the girl wants to say something. She says her friends call her by your name. The guy wonders a little, but accepts the offer of this girl. Embarrassed, the girl says that she will continue to call him Rai. The guy did not expect such words from the girl. They shake hands, after which the guy says that he is pleased to meet this girl. The crowd that was sitting in the stands notices that these two got out. The girl announces to everyone that she is giving up and that she is lost. The crowd is whispering from misunderstanding. The teacher asks Charlotte if she is sure of her choice, to which she gives a positive answer and asks Ruya to enroll. The teacher looks at what is happening with bewilderment, but at the same time they agree with her decision. Then he turns to the girl and reminds her of what she has to do if she loses. They remember the words spoken by the girl. She promised if the guy wins, she will become his slave. The guy convulsively says that he does not need a slave. Learn to accept the guy's decision. The girl asks these two guys to stop and says that she will not let the conditions of the duel become dishonest. The guy asks the girl if she wants to become a slave herself. The girl is embarrassed, but shows her figure and hints to the guy exactly that. The guy silently looks at her and does not understand her actions. Eventually, the guy gets the idea, and he starts to get very embarrassed. She turns to the guy and tells him not to make the girls blush. The girl got a little angry at the guy and grabbed his wrist with a sharp movement. The guy sees a glow on his hand and doesn't understand what it is. Marks formed on the girl's hand on the guy's hand. These marks represent the slave's mark. The girl says that she is very sorry, and now she is completely at his mercy. This makes the girl embarrassed. The girl says that even if the guy regrets, nothing will change. The guy is a little shocked at this situation. After a while, the examiners begin to repair the ground after the battle. A crowd of guys are talking to each other. After some time, the whole crowd of children goes to one place. Yuri turns to Rui and asks how things are going with the exam. At this moment, Rui hugs Charlotte by the guy's left arm. The guy meets Yuri and greets him. Yuri says that it was difficult, but he did not think that the incarnation of the hero would obey anyone. The girl blushes and asks Yuri to shut up. Ruya is asked who a guy and a girl are to each other. The girl turns to Yuri, to which he says that if he had told him earlier, the guy would have stayed away from him. He just wanted to make friends with him. Ruya does not understand what is being discussed, and for which Yuri asks him for forgiveness. Yuri wants to introduce himself again. The guy introduces himself as Yuri von Exodoria. He is the Prince of Ecuador. Ruya is shocked by the guy's response. The guy turns to Yura and says that most likely he should be called Mr., to which Yuri says that he should not do this and asks not to call his friends Mr. Prior. The guy agrees with Yuri's words. Yuri addresses him and notices that the guy is not from the capital and is interested in where he will spend the night tonight. Ruya, of course, did not think about it. Ruya realizes that he has neither money nor a migration card. It's hard for the guy to talk about it, but afterwards he tells the whole situation. Yuri understands everything and thought that the guy would act on the situation. Ruya apologizes to Yuri. Yuri says that he will do something, to which Ruya says that he will obediently return back. Suddenly, the guy is scared by Yuri's unexpected words. Yuri offers the guy to spend the night with him, explaining that he will be fed and dressed there so that he cannot think about money. Yuri will solve something with the migration card. The girl finds all this suspicious and asks Yuri about the reasons for such actions, to which he responds with a positive answer. The guy says that there is a shortage of population in the capital now, and if someone outstanding enters the academy, then its rating will increase. Then students from other countries will begin to arrive in streams. Yuri turns to Rui and says that he is an important cadre for this academy. The guy is a little shocked by such words. Ruya gets a little upset, saying that academic life sounds pretty attractive, but he can't forget about his sister and Rio. Unfortunately, he will have to refuse. Yuri says that if the guy comes in, he will support him and help with everything he needs. Ruya thinks a little. She thinks that if Yuri helps him, it will be easier and simpler. It's still better than surviving alone. Also, thanks to Yuri, he will be able to get information about the hero. The guy agrees with Yuri's words and says that he is entering this magic academy. They shake hands. The guy turns to Yuri and says that he relies on him. After a while, Ruya is talking to a woman in a building. He thanks her. When he goes outside, he notices something suspicious. Charlotte stood in front of him, dressed in a beautiful outfit and greeting him. I also greet the girl and does not understand why Charlotte is here, because the results will be announced tomorrow. The girl turns to the guy and asks him why she can't come. She is a little embarrassed and puffs out her cheeks. The girl is still staring at the guy. The guy says that it's not that he's not happy to see her. On the contrary, he's glad to meet again. The girl is a little embarrassed and agrees with his words. The girl takes the guy by the hand and guesses that he decided to walk around the city. The guy is embarrassed by such actions and a little worried. The girl says she will take him around the city. They walk around the city and go to different shops, thereby stopping at one of the shops. The girl offers to try on Rui's clothes. Then they went to a cafe where they had a nice time over a cup of coffee and sandwiches. The guy holds a lot of packages in his hand and says he had fun. The girl confirms his words and says that she had a lot of fun. The guy thinks a little. He feels a debt to Charlotte because the ogre hero is her respected ancestor. He thinks it's possible that the heroes who sealed them with Rio and his little sister are still alive. The guy turns to the demon queen and says that the ogre lived more than 300 years ago. The girl confirms his words and says that the characters are not so simple. She says that the hero could create such a space as an endless hell, which means he probably found a way not to grow old. The guy appears and says that he will find this hero and send him to the next world. He thinks he's bad if he sealed them. The girl says that if you defeat the one who created the barrier space, then the magic of the barrier will be removed. Rio turns to the guy and says that it is not worth sending him to the next world as he is very strong. The demon queen thought that the hero just attacked them and imprisoned them here, but now they think the opposite, that he had some reason to do it. Ruya, you say that you still can't forgive the hero. The guy departs from his thoughts as the girl addresses him. Ruya turns to Charlotte and asks her how much she knows about the ogre hero. The girl turns to the guy and asks him if he is a fan. The girl, to tell the truth, knows a little about this hero herself. It has been 300 years since its disappearance. The guy is a little sad at such words. The girl says that she has several items that her ancestors left behind. The guy immediately cheered up from such words. She confirms his words and gives an example. One of the items is her sword Frau Karasos. The girl says that her predecessors used this ball. The guy is surprised by what he saw. The guy thinks about this mysterious ball and says that just looking at this sword makes it easier. The girl gives the sword to the guy. The ball in the guy's hands starts to glow. The guy doesn't understand what kind of warm power it is, because this sword passes magic power through it. The girl asks the guy to stop and asks him what happened to him, to which the guy apologizes and thanks the girl. The guy doesn't understand what just happened. The girl turns to the guy and asks him if he wants to go anywhere, to which he says that it's late and it's time for him to go home. The guy thanks the girl for today and says that he will see her off. Suddenly, the girl grabs the guy by the t-shirt. She confusedly turns to the guy. She suggests that Rui go to her room. Rui and Charlotte were sitting on the bed in her room. There was an awkward silence. Rui turned to the girl and said that today was fun. Charlotte replied that she had fun too. She suggested repeating the day sometime. The girl said that everything is going according to plan, but that's not all. She thought that she would make him her own today. When others found out that Charlotte had the blood of a hero flowing in her, everyone started making marriage proposals to her. She had an interest in love, but everyone around her was weaker than her. The girl thought about the moment when she met Rui and realized that at that moment something special happened to her for the first time. She got the slave mark. At that moment, she thought that Rui was hers and no one else's. Charlotte put her hand on Rui's arm and addressed him. A little haltingly, she said she became Rui's slave. He awkwardly agreed. The girl told Rui that since he had a slave, did he want anything? She told him to watch and put his hand on her heart. Charlotte said she could be touched. Rui was confused by her words. So he froze for a while and his cheeks turned red. Rui remembered Destarosa. She told him that they were pleased that he loved them, but he didn't have to burden himself. If he finds someone dear to him in his world, they won't be angry. Rui was surprised at that moment. Rio laughed in response and said that, as Destarosa said, only people are monogamous. It's normal for a male dragon to have multiple females. Destarosa said that demons have the same thing. Aristocrats have dozens of girls. Rui replied to the girls that he did not think he would be able to do what they were talking about. Destarosa told him not to overdo it anyway. The demons told him that if he had a man he would want to protect, he must act without regret. Rui agreed. Rio said meanwhile that Destarosa is the kind of person who is jealous. She was indignant. She said she was Rui's big sister. Rio started arguing and said she was older. Rio was trying to reconcile them again. While Rui was thinking about his two older sisters, the girl with pink Charlotte called out to him again, placing her hand on his knee. Rui thought that he started talking to Charlotte to find out about the hero. But after fighting, talking and walking with her, he realized that she was beginning to attract him more and more. Now Rui wants to protect that girl who is sitting next to him on the bed and laughing merrily. Rui realized that he wanted to be with her. Charlotte was looking at Rai at the time and unbuttoning her shirt. Rui blushed and nervously swallowed his saliva. He timidly turned to Charlotte and asked if he could. He approached the girl and wrapped his arms around her waist. Charlotte did not expect such a step and was embarrassed. Their lips touched. The girl melted in Rai's arms. They continued to sit close to each other, touching lips. Rui gently lowered Charlotte onto the bed, holding her head. He began to unbutton her clothes and pulled her skirt down from her hips. At that moment, Charlotte stumbled and shyly shouted for Rui to stop. She started to tell them to stop for today, but she didn't have time to finish. Rui told her that everything was fine. He promised that he would be gentle with her. Charlotte blushed. She replied to him that if he was gentle, she would agree. Rui started to pull down his pants and bent over Charlotte. She shyly shouted that she couldn't fit into it. The girl started telling him to wait. Charlotte wanted to ask Rui for something, but she didn't have time to finish. It's been a while. Outside the window of the house, birds chirped merrily. Sitting on a tree branch, Rui and Charlotte were walking along the road between the trees. Charlotte told Rui that she had a pain in her waist. Rui asked worriedly if everything was all right and offered to cast regeneration magic. Charlotte kicked Rai's leg indignantly. She told him to be quiet and think about his behavior better. Charlotte said that she was angry at Rai. She told him to take responsibility and become her boyfriend. Rui calmly agreed. He told her that he was a man, so he would take responsibility. Charlotte was happily surprised. She asked Rui if he would say that he was joking, but the guy told her that he would not say such a thing. On the way, Rui and Charlotte met some guy. He called out to them and asked if they were the same applicants. The guy stood at the head of two more of his friends and grinned menacingly. He told the couple that they looked weak. The guys rudely turned to Charlotte and asked if she was the hero's granddaughter. They said she was cuter than expected and asked if she would prefer them to a weakling like Rui. The girl got angry at their words and grabbed the handle of the sword. She said that if they approached her, she would stab them. The gang leader chuckled. He told Charlotte not to say that and pulled his hand towards the girl. Rui walked over to Charlotte and hugged her to him, holding her by the shoulder. He grabbed the pestering guy by the arm and said that Charlotte was his. The girl confusedly whispered to Rui to wait and not talk like that in front of other people. The guy from the gang got angry and used his power to release a fireball. Rui angrily shouted at him, asking why he was using magic in the city. He asked that guy what he would do if magic hit passersby. Rui thought he needed to stop that guy before anyone got hurt. He used the force and lifted a stone into the air. He shouted that it was a stone machine gun and launched it at the head of the guy who pestered them on the way. His gangmates were scared. They hurriedly apologized and, grabbing their leader by the arms, ran away. Rui smiled and offered his hand to Charlotte and invited her to go. Charlotte happily agreed. The girl told him that they were going to be late and suggested that they hurry up. A crowd of people stood against the wall. Approaching them, Rui exclaimed joyfully. He was surprised at how many people were standing in front of him. Charlotte replied that he would not stand out, otherwise they might start joking about him. She added that all his opponents were here. Rui, not listening to her, ran to the crowd and shouted that the results had been posted. Charlotte indignantly shouted after him to listen to what she was saying. Rui peered into the crowd. He also clarified with Charlotte that there were classes from A to E where he was going. The girl confirmed it. Students are distributed according to academic performance, the best in Class A. Charlotte said they were probably in Class A. Rui called out to Charlotte. He pointed her to a Class Z list that had their names on it. Rui asked what it was. The girl, angry, shouted that she did not know. She added that there had never been such a class before. Then a guy with blonde hair and a blue jacket approached the couple. He greeted them and said that they were very lively in the morning. The guy said his name was Yuri and held out a little. He remembered that this was the first time Rui had seen the guy standing next to him. That guy was wearing a shirt and a knight's helmet on his head. Yuri said that this was his escort, Ibuki Earnhardt, and added that he hoped they would be pleased to meet. Rui greeted the strange guy and shook his hand. The guy replied that he was pleased. He said his name was Ibuki, and he was guarding Yuri. As an introduction, Ibuki gave Rui a piece of candy. He offered a piece of candy to Charlotte, but she refused. Yuri said that Ibuki is funny. He said that in order not to show his face, his guard wears a helmet. Yuri added that Ibuki is good, and that he hopes that they will become friends with Rui. Then Charlotte turned to Yuri. She asked what it was. Yuri clarified that she was talking about the Z class. He said he wanted to surprise her, so he didn't tell her. Charlotte got angry and told the guy to explain everything. Yuri said that this is a new class that has appeared since this year. Initially, the students were distributed according to academic performance, but this year they decided to bring students with special abilities to the Z class. Yuri called them high-class cranks. But then Yuri added that Rui and Charlotte would have been in Class A. But they turned out to be too good, so, based on his decision, he assigned them to Class Z. Charlotte was outraged. She asked Yuri if he was following them. The guy replied that she might think so. He added, by the way, that no matter what Charlotte and Rai do, he won't tell anyone anything, so they don't have to worry. Charlotte walked up to Rai and took his hand. She replied that if they were together with Rui, she would agree. They turned around and walked away from the interlocutors. Ibuki addresses Yuri, calling him His Majesty, and asks why they need to keep an eye on Charlotte and Rui. Yuri grinned and said, "Really, Ibuki doesn't get it. There are only bullies in Class Z. Even Yuri himself finds it difficult to keep track of them, but he thinks Rui can do it." At this time, Rui was telling Charlotte on the way that they needed to change into their uniforms. Ibuki tells Yuri that if he is so looking forward to it, he will bet a lot on Ruishu. Yuri laughed in response. He noticed that he was wondering what kind of class it would be and said he couldn't wait. Charlotte said that they had changed their clothes. She said she wanted to see what kind of class of weirdos it would be. The couple entered the classroom. Charlotte told Rui that she hoped they would make friends. The guy with the red hair came up to Rui and called out to him. He asked him if he was the one who won the duel in the exam. Rai confirmed it. The guy with the red hair bent down and leaned his hands on Rui's desk. Charlotte, who was sitting next to her, grabbed her sword, preparing to defend herself. The guy with the red hair stared at Ruixia menacingly. He suddenly grabbed Rui's hand and said that that duel was very good. That guy started saying that he hadn't felt such fervor in a long time. He asked how Rui was able to win empty-handed against the sword, and said that magic was not bad either. The guy with the red hair added that the heat from Rui's flame was reaching right up to him. Rui thanked him timidly. The guy said his name was Burn, and added that he was good at explosive magic. He said that the big guy behind him was called Takabe, and the little one was called Mefer, and that he hoped they would all become friends. Everyone in the class told Rusa that they were pleased to meet him. He replied that he was also pleased. Guys and girls came up to Rusa and greeted him. One of the girls in a gray beret and coat showed Rusa a huge caterpillar in her hands. Then a guy with cat ears came up to Rui. Rui greeted him, but the guy in response angrily bared his teeth and left. Rai anxiously asked Charlotte if he had done something wrong. Charlotte told him not to be afraid, and added that beastmen dislike humans. Rui asked why this was the case. The girl replied that he was from the village, and therefore did not know about it. It is forbidden in the capital, but in other large cities they still get beastmen slaves. Therefore, many beastmen dislike humans. Rai was upset. He wondered if he would ever be able to make friends with that boy, the beast man. Then Ruya noticed a beautiful girl sitting by the window. He thought she looked just like a painting. Rui came over to greet this girl, but she did not answer him. Charlotte was angry. She shouted to that girl, "How dare she ignore Rui?" The girl apologized and calmly looked at Ruixia. She asked if he had spoken to her. She added that she had nothing to talk about. Charlotte was angry. She attacked that girl at the window, but she remained calm. Rui held her while she screamed at him to let her go. Yuri watched them from the sidelines. He told Rusa that it looked like he had already made friends with everyone here. Then he noticed that the teacher was already coming. Charlotte indignantly said that now she would have to see that girl in class every day. Yuri mockingly said how serious she was. Yuri turned back to Rusa, already sitting at his desk. He said that this time, as a classmate, he was pleased to meet him. The Royal Magic Academy of Froy. The first year, Class Z. Rui thought with a smile that his life at the academy began here. There is a lesson in the classroom. The teacher says that in this way, water magic uses moisture from the atmosphere. Then someone turns to the teacher and says that surely water magic can also control groundwater. Rui says this with a thought that his sister told him so. The teacher is surprised and asks if this is really true. This is the first time he has heard about it. Rui then offers to show him. The teacher asks if he can. Then he suggests going outside to practice. Everyone gets up and is outraged that the lesson is on the street again. Yuri thinks it's been 2 weeks since admission. The teacher asks Rui how he learned this, and he replies that he heard it somewhere. Yuri thinks that thanks to Teacher Legas, he can study everyone. But it's still good that he made him the homeroom teacher of Class Z. All the classmates crowded around Rui and said how he clearly explains what was expected of him. They return to the classroom after a while and see that the chairs have been broken. The girl anxiously asks who did all this. Rui turns to Tisa and says that he wants to ask for something. He asks what he wants. Rui says that he thinks to find out who did it. He must have left traces. He asks Tissy if he can help. He answers, "Why not?" and agrees. Tisha shows her magical analysis. Rui says that this is what he expected from him. Rui says he is surprised by his wide-ranging analysis magic. Tisha says it's because of him. He believes that this way he could analyze no more than one table. He achieved this thanks to the fact that he trained him after lessons. Tisha notices someone's hair, and also footprints. He says it's from a classmate's shoes. He cunningly asks if they thought to deceive him. Rui says he can't be fooled. The latter thanks him for such words. Tisha says that he is a halfling, and he was expelled because he knows how to use magic. Ordinary halflings have little magical power. He says that he was accepted in this class. So strange. For the first time he is glad that he can use magic, because now he can be useful. Rui looks at him with admiration. Tisha says that here is the information that he invaded, giving him a piece of paper. He thanks him. Rui asks if he will go with them. Tisha says that he does not like to deal with skirmishes. Tisha asks if he can handle it. Rui smiles and says to rely on him. Here the other guys are shouting that it's their turn now. They want to find it faster. Rui says they will show the culprit Class Z. They come to Class A. One guy asks Rui if they can start. They say in advance that they will fix everything later, and then kick the door that the girls inside are scared. They come in and say that since they've started a fight, they're ready. They're screaming that they found out that they did it, so let them come out. The students inside are whispering, "Is this really the same class?" The girls are giggling and asking what's going on. Rui says it looks like they're going to pretend to be innocent. An aristocrat comes out to them and asks if they are students from Class Z. Why are they making such a fuss? Rui looks at him and thinks that he has seen him somewhere, like he is from the aristocracy. Rui apologizes for being so sudden, but someone cheated on their class, and they're looking for who did it. The aristocrat says it's a pity, but isn't it a little early to suspect them? Besides, they have a lot of students from disadvantaged families in their class. He says that the poor and the mind is impoverished. Is it not better to suspect among your own? Rui's friends start to get angry. Rui tells Burn that they want to piss him off. Burn is outraged. Does he really suggest just shut up and watch? Rui replies that he does not and asks you to rely on him. He takes a piece of paper out of his pocket. They ask him what it is. He says that the hair that they found in their class. His friend examined it. It did not match the hair of the students in their class. The aristocrat asks how he found out. Rui says that he has students in his class with the same hair color. Rui says that they did an analysis at the genetic level and compared, so to speak. Then he offers to explain briefly. He uses time backwards. The hair begins to sparkle and makes this hair fly to the head of this aristocrat. He panics and asks what he did. Rui replies that it is magic that returns time. He says that the hair has returned to the head of the one from whom it grew. That is, this hair belongs to this aristocrat. He is horrified and does not understand how he knows this. Not even all high-class magicians can use time magic, and how such a simpleton from the village knows this. He screams in rage that he does not recognize him. He points his magic stick at Rui. Rui asks what he is going to do. He replies that he will clean it. He is going to remove it from here. He turns to the others and tells them to get ready too. Everyone is not moving. Complete silence. Rui says that pointing wands for no reason is not just against the rules of the school, but the law in general. He claims it's self-defense. Rui begins to act and apologizes to Burn for waiting and tells all the guys that they cannot hold back. It's time for retribution. Rui apologizes to Burn for waiting and says that now you cannot hold back. The aristocrat shouts to his men to shoot. Rui notices that people are gathering at the classroom. It is necessary that they do not get hit. One of them shouts that it's his turn. He's calling the middle wall. The aristocrats don't understand how their magic is blocked by such average magic of the commoners. Barn tells Dakaba that he's done well, and that he'll deal with them next. He uses his super bomb technique. After that, the aristocrats' wands just break. The aristocrat's name is Goro. His classmates say that they should have easily won. He tells them to shut up and shoot them. They say that their chopsticks are broken. They begin to realize that they will not succeed, after which they panic. One of them blocks the road and says that they can't escape because they started all this. They get angry and swing their fists. Then he uses leg reinforcement, with which he gets away from the blow. They realize that they can't hit it. The boy tells them that they are too slow. They already want to yawn. They don't understand where he went. The boy appears, kicks and says with a laugh that he probably overdid it. Goro looks at him in horror. Rui confidently walks towards Goro, who falls and backs away, asking not to approach. Rui grabs him by the throat and says that he started it himself. So who's the bad guy here? He immediately apologizes and says that he will do anything. Just let him forgive him. Rui speaks not only to him, but to everyone else. He says they can call him whatever they want, but he won't forgive those who harm his friends. He hits Goro's stomach hard enough that his back hits the wall and breaks it for good. He lies unconscious. Rui stands in front of him with a clenched fist. The students of the Z class are smiling happily and proudly. Yuri shouts to everyone that this is too much, and he just got distracted from them. What should he tell his father? All four of them are sitting in front of him with guilty faces. Burn starts saying that they started it first. Yuri shouts at him to shut up, and then says that it's actually his own fault that he didn't keep up. But if they had made even a little mistake, it wouldn't have been so easy. He asks me to think about his head on his shoulders at least a little. Everyone obeys him, after which Yuri tells everyone that they are free. Rui later approaches Yuri's desk and apologizes, saying that he probably got hurt. He doesn't say anything and just accepts it. He says that when he decided to make this class, he expected from the very beginning that this would happen often. Rui looks at him awkwardly and guiltily. He says that next time he will speak in advance and apologizes again. Yuri asks him about it, barely speaks and falls asleep right at his desk. Rui realizes that he was dealing with what they had done and did not get enough sleep. He becomes uncomfortable. Rui looks out the window and wonders if everyone is training. He sees the girl telling the other that she has improved too. Rui turns away and decides to go for a walk too. He leaves the audience. Some guy greets him and asks if he is the same Ruizia. He apologizes for being so sudden and says that she is from class 2A. Her name is Zion. He says it's nice for her to meet him. He says the same thing and shakes his hand. Rui thinks what a mysterious person is in front of him. There is no negativity coming from him, as if holy energy is coming from him. Rui asks him what he needs. Zion replies that it was just like that. I was wondering what he looked like, because there are rumors about him. He asks what the rumors are. He replies that of course about yesterday's attack on Class 1A. Rui smiles awkwardly. Zion giggles and says that now they have set the heat. They have even spread to the second graders. He says that they are having fun and that they are having a good life. Rui sighs and says thank God it's fun. Zion tells him that this is good. He puts his hand on his shoulder and tells him not to think that everything will go the way he thinks. Zion tells him that he is really strong. But there are stronger and scarier people in this world. Rui looks and thinks, what kind of charisma? There are some here. Rui bows to him and thanks him for the warning, but adds that he is fine. He knows 2 people who are stronger than him. Zion smiles and says he shouldn't have worried then. He walks away and says that he needs to go, and that they will see each other again. Rui is left alone with thoughts of how mysterious he is. Zion walks down the hall with the same smile. Rui loudly flops down on the bed face down, clutching the sheet and screams how tired he is. Today they were busy repairing the destroyed classroom. He conjured and restored a wall or a board that had a huge hole in it. He fixed it alone. Now there will be no one else who will encroach on Class Z. He closes his eyes, gradually falls asleep, and says that, in general, thank God that there is. That is. He yawns, stands up in the same school uniform. He pulls up his hands. The other wipes away tears and says, is it really morning? He is surprised and looks around. He realizes that he is not in his bed. He wonders if this is an endless hell. He looks around. Everything is bright and white. He screams why he's here again. Then he remembers something. He realizes that if this is an endless hell, then his sister and Rio will help him. He decides to find them by searching for magical power. He uses this magic and is surprised by the result, not believing that he does not feel anything. Terrified, he wonders again if this is exactly endless hell. Then someone appears and in a humble tone tells him to be calm. The girl with long white hair says that this is the endless hell. She calmly takes a sip of tea from the mug and invites Rusa to join her and sit next to her. She is wearing a light white dress with a slit at her feet. Ruya keeps wondering who she is. He doesn't feel hostility from her, but decides that it's worth being on the lookout. Ruya awkwardly apologizes and approaches the table. The girl tells him not to be embarrassed. She pours him tea with a plant petal and tells him to drink it, and then calm down. Ruya raises her mug doubtfully and suspiciously, looking at the tea in silence for a long time. He drinks his tea at once, while that girl looks at him with a victorious expression, holding her cup. Ruyo relaxes and tells her that it's delicious. The girl openly smiles at him and says that it's good. Ruya finally asks, still confused, who she is. He is surprised to think that she has just laughed. The girl introduces herself and says her name is Oka. She says that the ogre left her to manage this endless hell. She lowers her relaxed and cunning eyes. Ruya immediately gets up from the table and prepares his fists, which does not touch in any way and causes reactions of Oki. She tells him not to be afraid, explains that she is not his enemy. She calmly drinks her tea from the cup again. Ruya is in a panic and to some extent screams in fear. Then why did they need him? Why is he here again? She calmly answers him that the reason is simple. She says clearly that he has lifted the seal from the endless hell. Ruya continues to stare at her in surprise, still not lowering his fist. His mouth opens slightly. He asks in shock if he really took it off. Oka asks him if he got an item from the hero in the real world. She explains that, thanks to him, the seal fell off. Ruya lowers her eyes from understanding what Oka is talking about. He reflects that the time he held Charlotte's sword, he felt some kind of power from it. He guesses that it was then that the seal was lifted. Oka tells him that he and Endless Hell are connected. She tells him that if he collects all the hero's items, the seal from the Endless Hell will be completely removed. He asks joyfully and in surprise if this is really true. He immediately begins to think, if this is the case, then if he asks Charlotte for help, it will be better than looking for a hero who is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Ruya thinks of it and asks in doubt. She runs this place. Why does she tell him how to remove the seal? She sadly says that this is because the goal of Endless Hell has already been achieved. On the contrary, it is strange that the Endless Hell still exists. He asks in shock if the goal of Endless Hell has been achieved. He does not understand and asks what it means. He asks another question. Why did the hero seal the Dragon Queen and the Demon Queen? Oka apologizes to him and says that he has no right to tell this. Ruya is not satisfied with this. He asks, but how is it? He asks to tell him at least something. He insists on asking her. She looks down, apologizes again. Ruya looks at her in silence and bewilderment, enjoying her reaction. He asks if she can then tell him why she shouldn't, and if he will return to his world. Here, Oka gets up from the table and explains that he is not physically here right now, so he will definitely return. His body is now sleeping deeply. She ends her explanation by saying that he was called here to train Ruyi. At these words, she pulls out a sword and points the point of the sword directly at him. He does not understand and asks again how to train him. He stands in front of her in a stupor, doing nothing. Oka says that now her goal is to remove the seal from the endless hell. For this, he needs to become stronger. She tells him to draw his sword, but he is not with him. Then Oka tells him to just think about him, and then he'll show up. He imagines a golden sword appearing in his hands. He holds it aloof and says that it really appeared. Oka asks him if he is ready. Without waiting for an answer, she says that they are starting their training. Rai is standing in a stupor. Oka swings his sword and strikes at head level. Rai manages to dodge and sit down, thereby saving his head. He begins to realize in horror that his head almost flew off. He continues to sit further, clutching his hands to himself. Oka tells him that she forgot to tell him if he dies here, he won't wake up in reality anymore, so he has to be careful. She attacks again. He runs away and screams that he should have said it in advance. What should he do if he dies? Oka says that if he dies by her hand, he would have died long ago just walking along the road. This training is also an exam. He defends himself from her blows and thinks that this is her strength. She is like a sister with Ryo. But swordsmanship is stronger than the two of them, in his opinion. Oka says that his reaction is not bad, but he does not use a sword very well. It seems that he was not taught how to use a sword. He coughs and says that he may not be as good as her, but he has the techniques they taught him. He talks about Qigong, the fourth attacking technique. He uses a bless. He attacks. She deflects the blow with her sword, holding it in a horizontal position. She grins and asks if he has made himself stronger with the Qigong technique, which is very interesting for her. She says it looks like he can hold out a little longer. She attacks him sharply. He winces and barely holds on. He thinks she's so fast. His eyes can't keep up. He's barely breathing and says it's not time yet. He waves his sword and uses a super boost. A bright light comes out from his sword. He attacks with it. It reflects again. Oka lowers the sword. He immediately uses a magical body, a true slice of space. Oka suddenly says that it is clear to her, and that this is enough. She says with a smile that his strength lies in the fact that he is not limited to the form. He immediately attacks without hearing her words. He uses the technique of the heroic heart Sakura attack. She creates a barrier in front of her, but it breaks down from the pressure of the hand. Then he realizes that this is his last chance. However, his mind gets muddled. He begs himself to hold on for a little longer, but falls on Oki's arm without strength. Oka giggles happily and tells him that she didn't mean to kill him. She thinks his little body did a great job. She tells him that his fate is hard and cruel. May Sakura's blessing come with him, and may many save him. She kisses him on the forehead and tells him in the light that she relies on him because the fate of the world is in his hands. Rui's body disappears in Oki's arms. Rui wakes up in his bed and moans, saying that his whole body hurts. He quietly lifts himself up on his hands and accepts that he overdid it yesterday. He examines himself and says that, by the way, there are no wounds. That is, he really has not been physically in an endless hell. The magic body is an advanced technology that mixes magic and Qigong. If you combine it with a measurement section, you will get a real measurement section. He succeeded the first time, but immediately after he lost consciousness, he looks at his hand. He thinks that with an opponent of his equal strength, even if he is armed, magic and Qigong can be used to fill the gap in his swordsmanship technique. But he remembers about Aoka and thinks maybe she's better than him. He says emphatically that it is necessary to learn how to use a sword. At this time, all his classmates notice that he is coming to them and wish him a good morning. He comes up and asks what they are doing here at recess. They answer that they have nothing else to do. Rui asks them if he has already come. Everyone points to this man. Rui comes over and asks Ibuki if he can talk to him. Ibuki, wearing a mask, lies on the grass, pays attention to him, and says that he is surprised that he needs something from him. Rui asks him about Yuri. Is he really at work now? He replies that it is, and that he was kicked out again. He told Yuri that he ran after the cat, but the cat at work first asked for forgiveness, and then asked if he could leave for a while. Ibuki asks Rui what it is. He replies that he really needs him to teach him how to use a sword. Ibuki thoughtfully asks if it's really him. Rui, he says he doesn't have to use it. And wouldn't it be better to ask Charlotte? Rui says that he will ask her too, but she attacks them, and Ibuki protects them. Rui declares that he wants to learn both techniques. He says without enthusiasm that it is clear to him. Then he agrees with Rui and says that he will give him the hereditary sword technique of protecting the king. Rui immediately thanks him with special joy. Ibuki then asks him if he can teach him magic in return. Rui looks at him in surprise and asks again. Then he agrees too and explains the stopper by saying that he is just a little surprised. Ibuki says that he looks at how everyone is trying. Everyone has started to influence him. He says with embarrassment that he usually shirks, but if he is with everyone else, he believes that he will succeed. Rui sincerely smiles at him and then offers to become stronger together. Ibuki joyfully shouts that he will try moderately. Rui is surprised to ask what moderate means. He awkwardly asks if it's really not necessary. He points his finger up and says that people don't die that easily. This phrase scares Ibuki a little. A little later, they train. Rui swings a sword, imagining Oki. Rui grazes Oki's forehead with a sword, which causes her to bleed. She then tells him with a smile that he has improved. She says that it looks like he is training. Rui claims that he has many teachers. He is taught by guys who are good with a sword. Oki is surprised to say that he is serious. She says the time is coming. She then offers to take a break. Later, they drink tea. Rui remembers and asks, "It's an endless hell. So why aren't my sister and Rio here?" She replies that this is because they are on another floor of the endless hell with him. This is the first floor closest to his world. She tells me that the Demon Queen and the Dragon Queen are on the deepest third floor. He is surprised, abruptly gets up from the table, almost pours tea and asks if this is so. Then there is another second floor where he has never been. He asks if there is someone there too. Oki replies that it is, but she cannot tell him who is there. She guiltily lowers her eyes and says that she is forbidden. He sits back down at the table in frustration and sighs. He thinks with disappointment, oh, this hero. Oki remembers something and turns to him. She says it looks like he met the hero's granddaughter in his world. He asks her if she's really talking about Charlotte. He immediately thinks to himself that Oki rarely asks questions. He confidently tells her that he and Charlotte are friends. He immediately begins to tell her that at first she disliked him, but after the duel their relationship changed dramatically. She screamed at him that she couldn't lose to someone like him. Rui didn't like it either. Oki says it's a pretty interesting introduction. Rui immediately says that she is really lonely. He starts talking about her, that she still wants to become stronger for others, and that she is very sweet and good. Oki listens to him, reacts indifferently, sips her tea and says that, apparently, she lives happily. Rui confidently says that it is, and that she also helps him with her cheerfulness. He drinks tea, sees himself and says that he is already starting to be transparent. This time it has been about 6 hours. He really starts to glow and disappear. She says that, in his opinion, they will have to say goodbye soon. She reminds him and asks him to continue training when he gets back to his place. Rui thanks her for today. Here Oki turns to him in a serious voice, and he turns his attention to her. She doesn't want to say it, but she asks him to beware of the sect of being. He does not understand and asks again what kind of sect of being. She says again that she can't tell you the details. However, when he prints out the endless hell, he will definitely have to contact her. She instructs him not to think about delving into her for anything, and let him be on his guard. Otherwise, he will be left with nothing. Rui looks at her in surprise, disappears, and only obeys her. Oki looks after him warmly and lovingly. As soon as he disappears, Oki lowers her head. Her grip on the bowl softens. She continues to sit with a sad face, only asking him to be careful. A crowd of students walk down the street. Rui stretches and says with a sigh, how boring it is at recess. He says Charlotte is busy. She apologized to him and said that today she had business that could not be postponed. Rui says that it was necessary to negotiate with someone and take a walk. He talks out loud while someone is talking. It's almost noon. He's a little hungry. He thinks he can eat somewhere. Rui immediately warms his ears when he hears about delicious food. He sharpened all 5 senses. He hears some sounds and assumes that there is some kind of showdown somewhere. Why is he doing this? He sees that someone is shouting in front of the knights that he said it wasn't him. A guy with sharp teeth is arguing. This is Wolf. Rui says it turned out to be a wolf after all. It's the first time he's met him anywhere other than in class. He wonders what happened. An old man tells Wolf not to lie. He keeps defending himself. The crowd begins to thicken. Rui asks the knight what happened. He asks him why he's doing this. They're dealing with him now, so it's better not to approach. Rui claims that his classmate is there. He asks if this little beast is really his classmate. He asks if he can talk to him then, because Wolf is evil and nothing can be learned from him. Rui agrees. Wolf screams. How many times does he have to say it again? He already told them that he just found it. That old man points his finger at him and asks who else could have done this, which is why he hates human animals. Here Wolf looks at this old man in horror and anger. He wants to attack out of rage. Then Rui intervenes and asks them to stand. They both pay attention to him and freeze in place. Rui asks them what happened. Wolf angrily asks why he is here. Rui awkwardly tells him, "Come on, what's he doing?" The old man immediately asks if he knows him. He shouts that this beastman stole his expensive goods. He asks to tell Rui to return this product to him. Wolf repeats again that he has already said that he did not steal anything. Rui continues to stand and asks them to at least tell them what happened. The old man starts talking about his store. A thief got into Markov's store. When he moved away, the glass turned out to be broken. All the most expensive things were stolen. Immediately after calling the police, he decided to look for the thief himself. Then he saw Wolf and he had his goods. The old man screams at him that he couldn't do it alone, so they helped him. He asks where they took so many of his goods. Rui thinks to himself that it is clear to him. It's true that there is no proof that Wolf is a thief, but there is no proof that he is not guilty. Discrimination against beastmen has long been ingrained, but it was regulated by law. Long-term resentment will not disappear so easily. He had often heard that beastmen were often accused without reason, so he could be caught without proof. Here Rui declares that then he will find the real thief himself. The old man and Wolf look at him in surprise. The old man asks in a rage what kind of a real thief. What is he even saying? Because Wolf is a thief, he has a bottle. Wolf screams in anger. Is he deaf? He told him that he just found her. Rui tells them that words can't help things right now. He turns to Wolf and asks if he runs fast. He asks what he is doing. Then he replies that he is faster than people. Rui says it's clear to him, and that's fine. Then he uses magic and summons a smoke haze. Indeed, smoke is coming out around them. Wolf looks at him in surprise. The old man doesn't understand what's going on at all. He immediately takes them by the hand and tells them to come here. The old man looks around suspiciously and doubtfully. Then he realizes that neither Rai nor Wolf is with him. He screams that this worm has escaped. He begins to report that the knights have been watching him since he ran away. They apologize to him and say that they will find him right away. The knights begin to discuss what to do, because he is very fast. One of them says that there is one guess. He says they must be students of the Magic Academy. If that's the case, then the other one happily guesses. He says he should just ask her to help. She's probably at the royal palace right now. One shouts to the other to go quickly to ask for her help, and he will look for him. The second one listens to the first one. At this time, Rui and Wolf are sitting on the roof of the house. Rui tells the other that they have separated. He agrees with him. Wolf asks him why he is like this, because even a group of knights can start chasing him. Rui smiles and says that he just needs to find the culprit as soon as possible. Wolf looks at him awkwardly. He asks him why he got involved in this at all. He suspects and asks if he is up to something. Rui says that this is not the case. Wolf asks in anger, then why is he spinning underfoot? Rui says with a smile that they are friends, because it's obvious. Wolf doesn't understand what he's talking about, and is even redder. He thinks to himself that he growls at him every day, but he doesn't care about it. He looks at Rui's smile in surprise. He doesn't understand what his goal is. He probably also thinks beastmen are bad, because all people are like that, in his opinion. Rui then tells him to go with him to where Wolf found this bottle. He stands up and holds out his hand. He agrees and leads him. They come to a place that looks like a corridor. Wolf says it was kind of here somewhere. Rui examines and says that there are no traces. He asks the wolf if he still has this bottle. He searches for something in his pocket and says that. However, he still has it. He hands him the bottle in response to a request to give it to him for a while. Rui puts the bottle on the floor and uses magic analysis, stretching out his hands to the thing. Wolf is watching him. Suddenly, traces begin to appear on the bottle. They went in a certain direction. Wolf is surprised to ask what kind of magic this is. He explains that this is the magic of analysis. His friend taught it. Wolf looks surprised and asks what other friend. Rui says that they also have Tisha in their class, who is a halfling. He believes that he is very skilled, so he taught him. He smiles broadly and tells Wolf that he's not as good as him yet. He gets up and calls for Wolf to follow in his footsteps. Wolf follows him, asking him to wait. They run. Rui sincerely admires and tells Wolf how fast he is. On the contrary, he is outraged that he is too fast for a person, what he is like in general. Rui then suggests that he run faster, He wonders if it's even faster. He shouts that he will not let himself be overtaken. They stop. Rui sighs and says that they have finally arrived. From behind, a panting wolf regains his breath. Rui sees and says that it must be this barn, because the magical footprints lead them inside. Wolf just follows him and obeys. Rui gives Wolf the bottle and says he will return it to him. Thanking him for it, he awkwardly takes it from him. Wolf thinks suspiciously about this barn. Apparently he knows it. They open the door, wanting to get inside as soon as possible. Then Charlotte comes to them and tells them to stand. She finally found them. Rui doesn't understand and asks why she's here, if she's been following them all this time. She says with a sigh that she came here for them. Did they really think there was any other reason? She apologizes in advance and says that she searched for them with the help of magic power. She admits that it was difficult for her. Rui remembers something and wonders if the knights were talking about her when they wanted to quickly ask someone for help. He asks her if she really came to catch them. The atmosphere changes. Charlotte smiles and says that it is. She came for them. Today, she was invited to the royal palace to be a magic instructor for warriors, and then suddenly a request came to find them. She was told that the black-haired student of the academy ran away very quickly. Rui awkwardly says that he understands. He asks her again, meaning she needs to catch them. Wolf begins to tense up and prepare his claws. She lets out a laugh and says that he probably just got involved in some troublesome showdown. Wolf is surprised, and Rui awkwardly asks how she guessed. They begin to discuss and talk furiously, while Wolf stands awkwardly between them. After the discussion, Charlotte says that it is now clear to her. She declares that she will help them too. Rui asks if this is true. He knew she would believe them. He hugs her tightly, which makes Charlotte blush and asks her to wait. She asks with embarrassment what he is doing in public. Rui tells her not to be shy. Wolf continues to stand awkwardly and look at them while his cheeks turn red. He turns to the couple and asks Charlotte why she decided to help them. She is the granddaughter of the hero. Her valor will suffer if she helps such a beastman, Kakan. Charlotte looks and is silent at first, and then asks not to talk nonsense. She says that abandoning people in trouble, on the contrary, hurts her valor. He awkwardly asks if this is really the case. She turns away and asks Wolf not to worry. She holds her sword and says with a sad face that she has nothing to do with discrimination against beastmen yet. Rui says to come in quickly and get it over with as soon as possible. They open the door, breaking the chains from the inside. They look inside in surprise and freeze. They see a shelf with things and say that there are so many expensive things. There are chests of gold and bags of stones and jewelry on the shelves. Rui says that the inside is wider than he thought. It looks like he's poking his nose into some dark business. Wolf touches the jewelry and says that, in his opinion, it's all stolen. He assumes that, apparently, this is a secret warehouse of a gang of thieves. Charlotte agrees with him and says that this is most likely the case. She says it's probably better to go tell the knights as soon as possible. Rui says that probably, but it's too late to run. They turn around and see the doors closing abruptly. The muzzle of the guns is pointed at them. A lot of people surrounded them from all sides. One says he thought the knights had found them. He calls them babies and asks if they are really lost. The man all in gold says that his name is Ghoul. He is the leader of this gang. As they see, he is quite authoritative in the world of crime. Rui looks at it and thinks in disappointment. Is he really the leader of the thieves? It seems that he makes a good living stealing. He examines all the gold again and declares that he will not allow money to be made from all this stolen. Gulam looks at him wearily and says that it seems to him that he has already seen him somewhere. He remembers, smiles and says that he was lucky. He claims that he did not think that his goal would come to him on its own. Rui looks at him in surprise. He says he was lucky because his goal came to him on its own. Charlotte tenses up and prepares her sword. Rui doesn't understand what other purpose he's talking about. Here Wolf aggressively shouts that he stole goods from a souvenir shop, and that he was suspected because of Gulam. The thieves are straining. Gulam is wondering what kind of souvenir shop. He remembers and says that it seems that one of his subordinates stole something from there. He points to the boxes and says it's all stacked there. Wolf makes sure that it is definitely them and promises that he will not forgive them. Gulam sarcastically apologizes to him. It looks like he got hurt. He asks him if he wants him to become his master as an apology. Wolf clenches his fist so that blood is coming out of his palm. He furiously asks what he is talking about. Gulam declares that everything is as he said. The beastmen need a master, and he just has one rich precedent for him. He goes on to say that people break down psychologically quickly, so they are not durable. Before the laws are tightened, he plans to make good money on it. Wolf shouts in anger who he thinks he is. Rui stops him and says it's better not to. He explains that they want to make him angry. Charlotte agrees with him. So you can't give in to this. Wolf shouts at her to shut up and says that she looks down on him. She thinks that they are worse than them. At these words, tears come to Wolf's eyes. Then Rui turns to him and confidently asks him not to think about it, because they don't think so. Wolf stops talking and looks at them in surprise. Charlotte and Rui smile at him with a sincere smile. Rui hopes that he understood them. Rui raises his fists and says that he will repay him for Gulam hurting his friend. Gulam calls him a baby and asks what he's catching up on. He orders the thieves to deal with him. They all obey and ostentatiously crack their fingers as they approach Rui. Rui confidently looks at the bald thief. Gulam shouts at him just not to hit him in the face. If you sell him to people who love cute boys, they will get paid a lot. Rui sticks out her tongue at him in disgust. The bald man holds out his hand to him, but immediately screams in pain. Gulam watches them in surprise, his smile fading. The bald man looks at his fingers, which are broken in turn and twisted in different directions. Rui used a golden shell, namely taking away the fingers. Rui realizes that they are not listening to him. Gulam tells everyone to leave and points a gun at him along with the rest of the thieves. They wonder who he is. Rui asks him what happened, because his gun is shaking. Gulam shouts at him to shut up. Who is he holding him for anyway? He gives the command to shoot. Rui says that he uses something to protect himself and friends. He uses Qigong, a two-defense technique called crane. A barrier appears around them, which stops the bullets. Wolf stands open-mouthed in surprise. This is the first time he has seen such a technique. The thieves say there are no more bullets. Here Rui shouts that their chance is here. He asks Charlotte and Wolf to try not to damage the stolen goods. Rui punches one, who retaliates. Then Charlotte helps with her sword. She turns to Rui and asks to leave someone for her. They are all fighting thieves together. Wolf watches and admires. This is a sequence of attacks. They protect each other's blind spots. Gulam sees that they are losing and asks again who they are. He pulls out a gun and tells Wolf that at least he will take it with him. He screams at him to die. The bullet flies at him. Rui excitedly turns to him and shouts to be careful, at the same time extending his hand. Wolf remembers the past. People tell him that they were waiting for him. They think he came late. He apologizes. Wolf did not understand and asked why he suddenly called him. He shirked the answer and said to come in faster. They come in. A man tells him to look. There are a lot of people in front of him. He pushes him towards them and says goodbye to him forever and wishes him good health. Wolf does not understand what is happening. One says that he wants to show his relatives such a poor abandoned beastman like him. He asks to be introduced to his friends. Everyone points guns at him. One guy tells him that he is lucky. They have become famous. Now they will be able to live even richer. Wolf then realizes that they want to sell him. He hears the words that his friends have money and that they will shelter him. Now they can all be happy. They asked him if he really thought he could make friends with people. He is furious and thinks what kind of friends they are. He decided for himself that he would no longer trust people, no one else. He then broke the pistols of these people. Here, in real time, Rui screams at him to be careful and gets shot instead of Wolf. He looks at Rui in horror. He groans from the bullet. Wolf excitedly asks if he's okay. Rui asks Wolf if he is injured. He starts shouting in anger why he saved him. He hates them. Rui starts saying that he's like Class Z to him. They're all the same as him. He smiles at him. He explains that they were born with strange talents. It happens that members of the race who should have powers do not have them. It happens that they are not accepted either. They were all alone. They all ran in search of a place for themselves. Wolf is surprised by such words. Rui says he's not like that. He wants him not to be like that either, after getting to know the class and the teachers. They always pointed the finger at Wolf and said that he was just a beastman. He remembers all this. He reflects that he has always been the object of discrimination, but he certainly does not see someone beneath him. He thought that people considered him evil. He was discriminated against for being a beastman. Wolf stops talking when he hears Rai's words. Then Charlotte comes up to them and asks Rai if he's okay. She's going to cure him. He thanks her. Here she accepts to treat him, and Wolf gets up from his seat and tells them to rest. She will show them something, namely the real herself. He begins to transform, grows fur. He appears. He fully assumes the form of a wolf and says that he is better now. Charlotte looks and asks if this is really an atavism. She had heard of such a thing. A beast and a human being is a beastman. A long time ago, beastmen could easily change their appearance. She had heard that now a very small number of beastmen were born with this ability. She asks him if he is one of them. Wolf begins to howl long and loudly, looking up. He pushes off the ground with his paws, removes all thieves from the road. One thief in a panic shouts not to approach and shoots. Wolf dodges the bullet. Charlotte looks at him with admiration and says how fast he runs. Gulam realizes that things are bad. All his successors are unconscious. He starts to run away and goes to some wall. He begins to free a huge bird that sits in a cage in chains. The bird, exhausted, looks at him. Wolf sees and asks if this is really a wise parrot. He understands that he has such a rare species. Ghoul tells the parrot to take off faster. Does he really want to die? The parrot can't start flying. Then Wolf approaches and shouts from the side that he will not let this happen. Gulam shows a bottle with a potion and says that it is a rarity, but he will have to sacrifice it. He throws this bottle on the floor, shouting to deal with it. A purple liquid is spilled right in front of the wolf. The liquid begins to move and take on a certain silhouette. Everyone looks at the huge lump of jelly in surprise and does not understand what it is. They don't understand and ask what it is. Gulam laughs loudly and flies away on a parrot. He's not surprised that Wolf was scared. He says that this is a gluttonous slime, a very rare representative of slime. It sucks things into itself and becomes even bigger. Gulam says he didn't want to use him for Wolf's sake, but it was his own fault that he attacked him. Ghoul flies away, breaking the roof. Wolf shouts at him to stop. He says we need to catch up with him before he flies far away. Slime stands still. Then a certain hand comes out of him and reaches out to Wolf, who sees and dodges Slime's blow. Slime approaches the body of one thief, sucks it in. They scream in horror. Did he swallow it up? The human body is visible through the slime. Then he has several more hands that are ready to attack. Wolf runs away from his tentacles. Charlotte hugs Rui and covers him with herself. She suddenly remembers something about gluttonous slimes. She says that they eat both people and things. They eat everything. He makes everything for himself with food. She claims that it is a monster of danger, rank A. Slime ruins everything around and absorbs every broken detail. Wolf screams that if he stays in this barn, he'll get sucked in too. He understands that he needs to go outside. They overlook an entire part of the roof. Slime inside the room. They are relieved to say that now the slime will not reach them, but the roof breaks even more. Just the slime comes out. Wolf sees and wonders how to fight such a colossus. He tells Charlotte that even experienced adventurers fight with a rank monsters in groups. Charlotte says the two of them won't make it. Rui is shouting from behind so that they don't give up. If they don't stop him now, it will only get worse. Charlotte walks up to him and asks if he's okay. He forcefully says, clenching his fist, that thanks to her treatment, he was able to start moving. He sighs and causes his magic to freeze. Numerous ice crystals appear behind him. The slime begins to freeze and cover with ice around its circumference. He turns around and sees that it is Rui. He abruptly points his tentacles at him while Rui stands in a daze. Then Charlotte comes out saying that she also needs to stand out. She cuts Slime's tentacles with her sword. Slime makes sounds, and his tentacles multiply and increase. Thus, it covers the entire house they were in. The students standing on the other one are screaming in horror that he sucked up the whole barn. Wolf says we have to run before it's too late. Rui says that this will not happen and refuses. Rui turns to Charlotte and asks if she can stop him. She calls him a fool with a smile and asks who he is asking. She pulls out her sword, rests her heels on the surface, and then runs towards slime from above. While she is flying and the ice slime is approaching her, she uses Sakura's heroic heart technique. She smiles confidently, swings her sword using a flash of petals, thereby crushing the ice around the slime. Chunks of ice fly around and break with a crunch from her impact. She turns to Rui and shouts that she leaves the rest to him. He holds out his hand and promises that he will not let her down. Its ice enlarges around the slime and covers it completely, along with the house and its huge tentacles. Wolf watches the anime and sincerely admires it. He tells them that they really stopped such a machine. They are standing on the roof. Wolf says that it remains only to catch up with him. Then Rui suddenly falls down again, holding his stomach. Charlotte uses her magic and asks him not to overdo it. She explains to him that running with such a wound can kill him. Charlotte adds that he has probably already run very far away, so they won't find him. Rui barely straightens up. His eyes are cloudy and tired. He forcefully says with a trembling voice that there must be some other way. Wolf listens to them, is silent, and then declares to both that he will be able to catch up with him. Rui looks at him in surprise. Wolf says that he understands where he flew to by the smell. Therefore, Wolf asks Rai if he will climb on it. Rui looks at him for a long time and wants to somehow object to his proposal. He looks at Wolf with great surprise. He thinks to himself that if you climb on an animal or a beastman, then this is a sign that there is absolute trust between a human and a beastman. Then Wolf realizes what he's thinking and says that, to be honest, he can't trust all people yet, but he says they're different from others. and he's already figured it out. Charlotte and Rui look at him in surprise. Wolf asks them not to think that he is doing them a favor, but asks them to help him. Rui smiles, agrees to his proposal, and offers to defeat him together. Charlotte tells them that she will help those who were sucked in by that slime and let them go and deal with him. They thank Charlotte for this. Rui climbs on top of Wolf and tells him to ride forward with great confidence. A ghoul flies on a bird. In the process, he is all outraged about who they are, and he just had a path to the world of metropolitan crime. He says that okay, with the help of a bracelet that he found near the ruins in the capital, he will get out of the situation. He says there's a big stone on it. It's probably not just some kind of treasure. If you sell him with this bird, he will get a pretty good sum. The bird hears these words and smiles sadly. Gulam is furious and says that he will never forgive them. He plans to rebuild his gang and take revenge on them. He flies over the city. Wolf and Rui see him and run across the roof. Rui shouts that Gulam has already flown out of town. They are swearing at this thief. How dare he even think that he can escape from them? They jump on the walls, climb up. Rui enjoys such a rental. They climb over the fence, crossing the border of the city. Rui says that there is only a forest further on, and that there will be many obstacles, and it will be more difficult to catch up with him. Wolf asks Rai what they will do. Rui then suggests attacking him before they miss him. He uses the average force of gravity that the bird begins to fall down. Gulam curses. Why is he coming down? Let him fly harder. Rui is glad that it worked. He says that everything is on him next, calling him a general. Rui is flying straight to Gulama. He freezes in shock. Rui wishes him a good day and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. He screams how he got here. Rui asks if he really thought he could escape from them. Rui takes him by the collar, lifts him up and says that he will beat him properly. He prepares his fist and asks him with a smile if he is ready. He asks to wait and says that he can kill him that way. He starts saying that he will give him the money, and that he actually has a lot more with him. Rui says he doesn't need it. He then offers magical items. He replies that he does not need stolen items. Gulam then offers to give him the women. He promises that they are all very beautiful. He grins, apologizes, and says he doesn't need it. He confidently says that he already has his own sweet girlfriend. He keeps asking me to wait. Rui disobeys and uses a hammer made of a golden kigong shell. He strikes that the drone flies far away. Rui says that now you can relax. He strokes the bird, apologizes for scaring it, and asks if it can land. The bird happily agrees. They land. Wolf tells Rui to watch. He shows that he took everything from Gulam. Rui says that he caught him. He is modest and sighs. He says that he made sure himself that it would fly away in his direction. He asks Rui. He trusts him. He says with a grin that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Everyone is smiling, including the bird. Rui offers to go after Charlotte because she still saves thieves. Wolf transforms into a human and agrees with Rui. Rui examines Gulam and notices something. He sees the same bracelet with red stones. Wolf sees his reaction and asks him if something really happened. He says that it's nothing like that and offers to go. They come to Charlotte, who pulls out the thieves. Wolf sees and says that the knights have just arrived. Rui says it's obvious. It happened here. They see and say that the group of thieves seems to be fine too. The knights escort the thieves. Rui tells Wolf then to go and prove that he is innocent. Charlotte pays attention to them. She waves her hand at them. Yuri orders the knights to make a damage report. Another knight comes up to him and hands him the plan. He swears at Rui that he's always doing something. Rui says he got mad at him again. Wolf apologizes to him for involving him in this. Rui says that Yuri seems to have suffered from thieves himself, saying that they even made it hard in the stomach. Yuri says in anger that the next time they are reported, then he hears them. Wolf hears and asks if he is okay. Here a joyful bird flies to Rui. The bird cuddles up to him, puts his head so that he strokes. The knights don't understand and get scared. Wolf listens to him and tells Rui that it looks like he wants to become his bird. Rui looks at and strokes the bird. The bird says something. Rui asks Wolf if he understands what he is saying. Wolf replies that he understands. He has atavism. He says that he is more a beast than a beastman, somehow understands what the animals are saying. Rui is surprised. Rui says that then he will ask if he can borrow it from the hostel manager. The bird is telling him something. He wonders why he likes him so much. Wolf says he thinks he knows why. Rui listens to him attentively. He says that the bird feels great strength in him, which cannot be in such a small body. There is silence. Wolf says again that he still did not understand why he was always helping everyone. Rui says he may be strong now, but he couldn't do anything before. He remembers and says that he was not good at anything. He says that one day he had teachers, from whom he learned a lot of new things. How to use magic, wisdom, survive, and also learned kindness and love, and so he became full of everything from them. So he decided that he would be the one to give. Wolf is surprised and asks him again. Rui says that's why he's now teaching everyone what he was taught, even though he's already taught them a lot. Here Wolf abruptly kneels in front of him. Rui is shocked by such actions. Wolf says that this pose means complete obedience for the beastman. He says that he has fallen in love with his spirit. He asks him to make him his attendant. Rui doesn't understand who needs to be made. Rui refuses and offers to just become his friend. Wolf says that he may need his power in the future. Of course, he is not against simple friendship, but inside his soul, he still wants to serve him. Rui looks at him in surprise. He agrees, but adds that he will still treat him like a friend. Wolf is surprised by his agreement. He's so happy about this. Charlotte comes and says how friendly they have become. She says thank God he has proof of innocence. Then she suddenly bends down in front of him and asks him for forgiveness. She says that she may have a connection with the discrimination of beastmen. Wolf looks at her questioningly. The ogre wanted to get rid of the discrimination of the beastmen, but he died halfway through. This case should have been completed by his heirs, but they did not have the abilities. Using this as an excuse, they wouldn't have done anything about it if her ancestors had done something. Wolf turns to Charlotte, holds her shoulder, and tells her to keep her head up. She raises her tear-stained eyes. Wolf thanks her for thinking about his race. He asks her to stop tormenting herself with thoughts about it. He explains that it's not just because of her ancestors. His race is also to blame for something. Charlotte wants to object. Wolf says that, thanks to them, he noticed that it was necessary to study each other's races more. Therefore, they too, in his opinion, should study the beastman race more. He asks her if she can contribute to this in any way. She wipes her tears and says that she will definitely do it. She will definitely try, because she is the granddaughter of the hero. They shake hands. After a while, someone throws away their black gloves in anger. The blonde man in his chambers is angry at Gulam, who was caught. He had just bet a lot of money by spreading information about the knights. He is angry that he still met him and lost. He begins to reason that if the knights are told about him, then he is definitely finished. There seems to be nothing left but to hire a killer. Someone agrees with him and says it's a good idea. It's amazing that he's already dealing with criminal organizations at his age. Then that respected man turns in horror and does not understand why an outsider is in the room. He locked himself in. A man with a sheep mask wishes him a good evening. The one with a trembling voice says that he is that beastman. He asks if he has forgotten him. His name is Spike. He says he made them friends with Gulam. He says that it is clear to him and asks if he also hurried here after learning that he had been caught. He asks Thorn if he can kill him on his own. He knows a lot of skilled killers. Spike asks him why he needs it. Because he is already dead. With these words, he hands him the severed head of a ghoul. The man pulls away from him in horror. Spike says that now he won't tell about him, but since he's missing, the knights will start an investigation, and so they can find out about his connections with him. He gets scared and immediately asks if he really came to shut him up next. He objects and says that he comes from a first-class aristocratic family. He says he can't just die. Spike asks him to wait and appears right behind him, saying that he hasn't finished yet. He sticks his palm into the aristocrat's stomach so that his hand passes through his body. The aristocrat is bleeding. Spike says he's done a lot of things. He takes his body with him and says that it is better to leave the capital for a while. He says that he actually wanted to meet Rui, but it seems like another time. He says that everything will be as the creator wishes. Wolf tells us that he has now become his first servant. He introduces himself. His name is Wolf Blackbite. He is glad to see them again. Everyone looks at each other and does not understand what is happening. Rui tells him to wait, because everyone will just be shocked by this. Wolf apologizes and adds that he prefers to speak directly. Rui says that there was another way to say that they kind of became friends. Burn screams that he didn't even open his mouth, and now he's saying this. Wolf gets angry and shouts too. Does he really not like something? He screams, which of course he doesn't like, because he is his best friend. Wolf says it's clear to him, however, that there can only be one best. Burn says that he seems to be a fool, but he says logical things. He says that he is like that. Bayan says he's kind of shrewd enough to be his minion, but he's number one to him. He takes a glove out of his pocket, throws it at Wolf, and announces a duel. Who catches it and agrees. Against the background, Teacher Legas is going crazy from this behavior. Tisha and Rui stand awkwardly aside. Tisha asks Ibuki if it is possible to follow them. He says that of course it is possible. Rui wonders if it was worth separating them. Charlotte says that it will be easier for them after the duel. Suddenly someone calls Rui. Yuri stands and wants to say something about the bracelet. He says he was appreciated. He says that it seems to have been found in ruins abroad. That is, it is not stolen, but it is still unknown who made it and for what purpose. Rui perceives the information normally. Charlotte next to him shouts why he brought him here. Yuri does not understand what is wrong. Charlotte screams in fright that it's an ogre's bracelet. Yuri and Rui stand in complete silence with their mouths open. Yuri clarifies if this is the bracelet of the ogre hero. Charlotte confirms this and says to look at the inside of the bracelet. She says that a flower is engraved on the ogre's things, it's a family secret, so she asks not to tell anyone. Rui stands there and thinks he knew it. It's the key. It's exactly the key that Oka was talking about. He remembers and says that his feeling did not let him down then. He turns to Yuri and Charlotte and asks if they can lend it to him. They are surprised, but Charlotte says that, in principle, they can give it to him. Yuri says that if she agrees, then he doesn't mind either. Rui thanks them. He thinks it's better not to remove the seal right now, so we should try not to touch him directly. Charlotte turns to Rui and asks why he needs it. He begins to doubt and gives out that he wants to study it. Charlotte looks at him suspiciously. She accepts this and asks him to tell her when he can do it. Rui looks at me warmly and says that someday he will definitely tell me. Yuri giggles and says that he would like to know too. Rui shouts that of course he will tell them. At night, a parrot flies to Rui's window and asks him to play. Rui calls him Steam and apologizes because he has business today. The bird is sad. Rui immediately offers her to play tomorrow. She flies away. Rui closes the window with thoughts. As Wolf said, he is wise. This wise parrot, whom he saved from a thief by asking the head of the hostel to leave the ferry. He called him that. The cleaner wondered if even Yuri had allowed him. He was told that he could leave it in the nearest forest. The other tenants liked him too. He thinks it's good that he saved him. Rui closes the curtains and is about to start his own business. There is an ogre's bracelet on the table. He takes the bracelet in his hands, puts it on, after which the bracelet immediately begins to burn brightly. He closes his eyes against the brightness. Suddenly, he wakes up again in an endless hell and wonders which floor he got to this time. He looks around and says that maybe there is someone hostile here, so he needs to be careful. He sees someone's footprints and is surprised. He sees his sister and Rio in front of him. They are surprised. One even lets out a tear. Rui starts crying and doesn't know what to say. He sees his little sister and Rio in front of him. They turn to him and also look at him in surprise with eyes full of tears. Destarosa asks if it's really him. Rui says with a smile that it's him. He rushes into their arms and tells them that they have finally seen each other. Rio is pinned between two bodies, does not understand and asks what happened. Rui keeps crying with a smile and says he's back. He holds Destarosa and Rio's hands and continues to cry nonstop. Destarosa pats him on the head and says that he is doing well and that everything is fine. They are with him. Rio cries herself, squeezes his hand and says that he is still the same crybaby. Destarosa tells Rio that she is crying herself. She screams that she is not crying and that her own eyes are swollen. The three of them look at each other with eyes full of love and longing. Later, they all sit and drink tea while Rui talks about the events. Destarosa gets up from the table, turns to Rui and asks her to say something first. Rui looks at her in surprise. She hugs him to her and asks how he dared to date the hero's granddaughter. Were the two of them just toys for him? Rui says to wait, but he is silenced by the fact that he is pressed against Destarosa's chest. He barely says he can't breathe. Rio frees him and tells him to stop. The completely red Rui can barely stand while Rio holds him down. Rui says awkwardly that he thought he was going to suffocate. Rio strokes him and says he's a poor guy, so she'll feel sorry for him. She clung to him that her dress was lifting up, letting her hands down his sides and saying that she was better than the one with more dignity. Destarosa denies this and shouts that he actually belongs to her. She does not agree with her and starts fighting. Rui sighs and asks her if she is still angry that he found a girl. Rio and Destarosa turn to him and look at him questioningly. Destarosa says she was joking, but she adds that she is still quite a bit angry. Rui looks at them awkwardly, and Rio tells his sister that she is acting like a little girl. Rio tells Rui not to think about her. She's not mad at all about such a small thing. Then she adds that, of course, if she's not like her or two of hers. Destarosa is barely holding back tears. Rui at this time thinks it's better not to talk about Charlotte in front of her sister. He watches them and warmly thinks what kind of nostalgia it is. He remembers something and tells them that since they have met again, he asks them to teach him something new. They take it joyfully and say that they are interested in him. After a while, Destarosa shows the source of the thunder. Rio shows magic on the fly. They pass on their knowledge to him, and Rui gladly accepts them. Destarosa wants to show something further, but is horrified, looking at Rui, and says that he is becoming transparent. He looks at himself in disappointment and says that it looks like the time has come. Rio starts swearing and asks what it means. He has to explain so that they understand. He begins to say that Oka told him about it. His body is in the real world, but only his soul is here. But the separation of the soul from the body is very dangerous. So after a minute in the real world, and after 6 hours in an endless hell, he returns. Destarosa looks at him with a bitter smile and says it's a pity they won't meet again. After a short silence, she rushes to hug him. Rui calls her by name. She says in tears how mysterious it is. It seems like a lot of time has passed since he left. She says that although it took a lot more time in endless hell before she met him, Rio hugs him too and tells him to be good. Rio asks him not to forget that he has her. Then she makes a reservation and says that he has them, Destarosa and Rio. She says that even if the world is against him, they will always be for him. Rui looks at them in surprise and listens to them. He begins to cry more, gradually disappears and thanks them. Lowering his eyes, he says they'll see each other. He disappears. Destarosa sadly says that he's gone. Rio cheerfully says that it's okay. They'll see each other again. Destarosa sadly agrees. Rio sees this and asks what it is. Is something wrong? She says thoughtfully that something is wrong, but she thinks she imagined it. She says she could smell him from Rui. Rio asks in surprise what his smell is. She replies that this is the smell of the one who sealed them, the ogre hero. His smell came from him, according to Destarosa. At this time, Oka is sitting on his floor and drinking tea. She turns to Rui and says that he will surely win. She repeats a second time, but without finishing, she puts the cup back down loudly. She tells him to kill him, this sinner. She wants him to definitely kill the ogre hero. The knight at the gate demands that the boys show their immigration card. They show everything. It's the turn to the next one. When a knight sees a man, he looks at him in surprise. A man with long hair and a big hat asks, "What is it?" The knight replies that it's nothing like that, apologizing at the same time. He makes excuses and says that he is just seeing a samurai for the first time. He says it looks like he has a real map. He takes a piece of paper and asks with interest why he came to them. He asks if it's really for work. He adjusts his hat and says it's for work. But it's not just a job. Rui wishes everyone a good morning in class. Burn and Tisha meet him. Tisha immediately asks if Rui has heard what Burn has done. He angrily and confusedly tells him to shut up because he promised not to talk. They keep fighting. From afar, he hears two girls talking. One wishes Iris, the other, good morning and says that she has always wondered if she likes anyone. If so, she asks him to tell her. Iris does not answer in any way. So the girl calls her again. Iris tells the girl how persistent she is. Doesn't she realize that she's ignoring her? That girl hears these words and happily says that Iris has finally spoken. Iris says tiredly that she can't stand it. Lona continues to stand by. Rui sees it all and says that even Lona couldn't. He thinks that everyone has already become friends, but only she feels the wall. He wonders if there would be any chance. Then a blue-haired guy comes up to him and says that he didn't understand something in his homework here. Rui agrees and asks where. Suddenly, Rui feels something and immediately reacts. His classmate asks him in fright, what is it? He comes to his senses and says that it's nothing, apologizes. He asks where he didn't understand. He shows the number and the place. Rui starts to look. As he watches, Rui wonders what he must have imagined. It seemed that he felt someone's gaze. After a while, a tired Rui lies on the desk with his head. Charlotte comes up to him and asks him if he's okay. She sees and says that, apparently, he hasn't been getting enough sleep lately. Rui doesn't know what to say to her. At other times, Rui trains with the fairy, causing the wind. He says that he hit everything. So he praises the fairy, calling it a good job. He notices something again and says that someone is looking at him again. No, it's not that he feels the gaze. He begins to wonder if this is someone's intention to kill. He wonders who he will be killed by. Returning to the time, Rui tells Charlotte that this is not the case, and that he is almost awake. Charlotte anxiously asks if he is sure of this. Charlotte exhales and adds with a smile, if he says so, then fine. But if he really needs help, let him ask for it. Rui thanks her. Rui feels something wrong again and turns around. He sees only his classmates, enthusiastically discussing something among themselves. Rui says that it doesn't matter where. He doesn't know from whom, but he is sure that he is definitely next. He feels this killing intent. Later, he walks in the woods and thinks that he seems to be being followed, so he decides to stop and try here. He takes a branch and thinks to draw a pentagram here, write ancient hieroglyphs around it, and that's it. This is a magic circle. It has two ways to use it. The first is to increase the power of magic, and the other is a barrier. A magic circle can make a barrier. He tells the magic circle to work. Then someone makes a sound and Rui screams that he got caught. He immediately uses the magic of the dark barrier. Branches come out of the ground. He builds a cage around himself. Someone starts to panic, and Rui says that he finally met the one who was looking at him. He wonders who it is. He sees the girl and then asks where she's from. He asks her where she's from, if she really wanted to catch him. She says that he is still dangerous, and it was the right decision to start watching him more closely. Rui tells him to wait in a panic, and then asks why he has to fight her. She says it makes no sense for her to answer. She declares that she will take revenge on him for her master, and then he immediately starts attacking with his foot, but Rui defends himself with his hands. Rui does nothing. Iris summons a bloody blade. Blood is coming from her fingers. This blood attacks Rui. Rui is sitting by a tree, covering his stomach. Iris proudly addresses the owner and says that she has taken revenge. Rui suddenly says that it's not bad because his arm still hurts. Iris looks at him in surprise. She asks him in horror how he got up at all. Rui approaches her and tells her that she uses a rather rare blood magic. He tells her that, in return for her blood, she can use very strong magic. He asks her where she learned it from. She resentfully says that she will not tell him, promises that this time she will kill him. She uses a blood scythe, after which a huge weapon appears in her hands. She attacks him. He immediately pulls away and dodges the swift blows. She starts to get angry. Iris wonders why she doesn't get in. She walks away from him and says that it's clear to her that her mistress has her eye on him for a reason. Iris says that then she will start acting seriously. Rui stops her and asks who her mistress is. Iris asks in surprise if he doesn't know, and then viciously calls him an upstart. She clenches her fist. She says that her mistress is the Demon Queen, Mrs. Destaroses Notens. Rui looks at her in surprise. He asks her if he is her enemy. He imagines and thinks that his sister is just like family to him. She lives in good health in an endless hell, but it turns out that in this world she is dead. But rumors say that the hero is to blame for this. But what does he have to do with it? Iris says that she feels the energy of the queen from him. Rui tenses up and thinks that it's true. After staying with her for 300 years, there was something of her left in him, but the little sister then said that her magic power was indeed stronger than human, but she gave him quite a bit, so people wouldn't notice it. That's what she told him then, how she had figured him out so easily back then. Iris tells him that he could deceive others, but she is sure that he will not deceive her. Her eyes begin to change. Rui immediately realizes that it is a magical eye. Iris tells him that he already knows. Her magical, I can see magical energy, its shape and colors. It's not just the magical energy of the Demon King. She didn't notice it at first, but on the day of the exams, she saw him using dark magic. Rui looks at her in surprise and understands what she is talking about. He then used a dark veil. Then she felt the magical power of her sister. Rui looks at her intently and says that superhuman physical abilities and blood magic, as well as a magical eye. He asks her who she is anyway. She starts talking to herself, then changes her mind and says that they are subjects of the great Demon Queen. Suddenly, Iris has wings and her tail from behind. She says their name is Iris V. Fonderson Vampires. It's about vampires. They are a superior race, distinguished by high magical energy from other demons. Because of their beauty and rarity, they are hunted by many people. Rui asks Iris in surprise if she was the vampire. She replies that because of their small number, they are on the verge of extermination, and Mrs. Destaroses saved them from this. True, she has never met her in person, but they say that she is very merciful and that she probably still exists somewhere. Rui looks at her in surprise. He thinks that his sister is now in endless hell, so she is unlikely to be found. He didn't think there were still people looking for her. Iris says that after continuing her search, she finally found him in the capital, a man with the magical power of the Demon King. She claims in this way that it means that he is her real enemy. Rui is perplexed and asks why he is her enemy. She answers him that everything is simple. She tells me that there are only two ways to take magic power from another. The first is to receive it for a long time, but this method does not suit him because his life is short. Rui is awkwardly silent and thinks about it. Iris says the second option is to kill. She says he got the magic power of the Demon King by killing her. Rui easily says that this is not the case. Iris screams nervously. Is he playing innocent again? She gets angry, begins to conjure, and says that there is no point in asking him anything anymore. She claims that he made her angry. Rui also starts using magic and says that she has the right to be angry, but he won't give up so easily. Iris screams at him to pay for his sin with his own life, attacks him using the Supreme Blood Cross Spear. The spear appears in the air, and then orders him to kill that spear flying towards him. Rui stands and prepares to deflect the blow. He says admiringly, "This is magic." All the feelings for his sister are invested in it, but then he won't lose either. He shouts that this is the power of the Demon King using a powerful ray. His beam completely destroys her spear with its light. Iris looks in surprise and does not believe her eyes. She says that this is magic that only the Demon King can use. She falls to her knees exhausted and says that even if you steal magic power, you can't use this magic in any way. She furiously asks who he is anyway. He replies calmly that he is a disciple of the Demon Queen, just like her. He holds out his hand to her and tells her that he is going to save the Demon Queen. She continues to stare at him in surprise. After a while, they sit on a log, Iris crying, holding a napkin to her mouth, while Rui supports her by stroking her back. Iris keeps crying and asking if it's really true that she's alive. She begs his forgiveness. She begins to reproach herself, saying how she dared to encroach on him in the first place. He continues to stroke her with a smile. Iris says she will accept any punishment, and that he can even take her life. Rui shouts that he doesn't need it, and he's not mad at all. He offers her to save her sister together, so there is no time to punish Iris. Iris says that then the punishment will be after her rescue. Rui agrees and says it's great. Iris remembers and asks him if he has told others about it. He replies that he hasn't told anyone yet. Iris exhales with relief, because there is enmity between dragons and demons. If someone finds out that both kings are alive, then the war will not take long to wait. Rui understands her and says that then it will be difficult to ask someone for help. Here Iris says that, however, this does not apply to everyone. She snaps her finger, and a lot of spirits appear behind them. Rui wants to assume something, but Iris says that they are all vampires. In fact, they were watching them from afar. Rui says awkwardly that he didn't notice them at all. One guy with a beard says his name is Bruno. He bows to Rui and says that even after 300 years, the Demon King is their only master, but if he knows him, then this is a completely different situation. He asks him to make them his subjects. Rui is afraid of what other subjects. Bruno says, still with his head bowed, that they didn't have a single clue before. But after a long time in 300 years, they finally met the bridge to the Demon King. Rui looks at them with understanding. Bruno says that Rui is their last hope. Rui agrees, saying that if that's the case, then he's ready. Bruno asks in surprise if it's really true. Rui looks at how happy they all are, and thought that they would be quiet. Iris addresses Rui as a gentleman and apologizes for the noise of her companions. Rui turns her attention to her, and then Iris, with a big smile and tears in her eyes, says that they are all very happy. She sincerely thanks him. Rui says that he is also glad that he has more friends. He offers to save Testarossa together. Iris takes Rui's hand and agrees to his suggestions, still calling him master and looking at him with submissive eyes. She hopes to continue working with him. Rui is lying on his bed. After a while, he wakes up, rubs his eyes, and says how delicious it smells. He abruptly opens his eyes and does not understand why it suddenly smells delicious at home. He gets up abruptly and sees Iris cooking something in the kitchen. She turns to him in the form of a maid and wishes him good morning, calling him master. She says she's making him breakfast, so she asks him to wait a bit. Rui looks at her in disbelief. He is shocked to ask why she is in his room at all. Iris takes the plate and says with a sly smile that such a lock is nothing to her. Rui says he needed an explanation of how she got here. Iris replies that it is obvious that she should help him. Rui is still staring in disbelief. Iris holds out a plate of Japanese omelet and offers him breakfast. She has put all her love into it. They sit down at the table. Thank you for the food and start having breakfast. Rui tastes the first spoonful and says how delicious it is. Iris smiles with red cheeks and thanks him for the praise. Now she offers him to change his clothes. Rui immediately refuses and says that he can do it himself. Here at school, Iris says she's going to introduce herself again. She is Iris, and now she reports to Mr. Rui. She says it's nice to meet them. Everyone is terrified. Byrne immediately asks Wolf what it is. He replies that he does not know himself, but she has taste, since she liked the general. Byrne sighs in disappointment. Byrne says that everything is not so good. His girlfriend can't keep quiet about it. Charlotte is sitting and trembling at her desk. She stands up abruptly and screams to explain what it is. She asks in what sense he got a maid. Rui laughs awkwardly and apologizes. Then Iris comes up and says that he is a poor landlord. She hugs him to her, offering him a hug. She says it's better not to listen to this stupid woman. Charlotte looks at them angrily. She can't stand it and screams that if she wants a fight, she'll have a fight. She throws her a handkerchief. Iris says that she just has one thought about her. Rui gets up and asks to stop. They both turn to him and tell him to shut up at the same time. Byrne and Wolf are sitting and saying that even he will not suffer. Rui hears them and thinks that they themselves have been fighting recently. The teacher conducts the lesson. Rui writes everything down in his notebook. He notices this atmosphere, that Iris and Charlotte are looking at each other as if they are ready to pounce. Rui thinks about making friends with them somehow. Here the teacher says loudly that what is written here is important. He thinks they already know that regardless of race, Those who have overcome the wall of power receive a special mark. Its first form is the Silver General's mark. After its owner becomes stronger, it becomes the Golden Royal mark. There is also a special royal mark about this mysterious royal mark. He asks if they know what the mark is. Ben raises his hand. The teacher asks him. Ben thanks Legas for choosing him to answer. He replies that when talking about a special royal mark, the Dragon King and the Demon King come to mind. These two kings are completely different. Previously, it was believed that there are other special kings, the King of Devils and the King of Fairies. But their existence has not been confirmed and they can be discarded. The teacher says that Ben is doing well and that everything is right. The Demon Kings become the force. The participants of the martial arts tournament fight the previous Demon King. And if the participant wins, he becomes the next king. Everything is as it should be for demons with high magical power. And the Dragon King by family ties is the one who is born into the royal family, is born with a well-aimed king. From that moment on, he becomes the King of Dragons. It is said that those two kings 300 years ago were considered the strongest of all time, but they were defeated by the ogre hero. He says that it is still unknown why he defeated them. Rui reflects, as he thought, Sister and Rio are amazing. He thinks, really? Why did he win? If he finds out why he sealed them, it may be a clue to their salvation. The teacher tells them that the history of magic lesson is over. He says that there will be practice next, that they will have another teacher. He tells them that they will be taught by a person with a general's mark. He says to ask him what they want while they can. Ibuka and Yuri are surprised that they will have a teacher with a label. They're wondering what he looks like. Rui himself is delighted with how much he can learn with the help of this teacher. Under the window of the school is the man with long hair, whom the knight met at the gate. The new mentor asks the class if they are Lega's students. He introduces himself as the wandering swordsman Kajiro. He will be teaching with them temporarily. Charlotte turns to Rui and asks if he really is that strong. Rui says it looks like he's just standing there, but he doesn't seem to have any weaknesses. The other girls also discuss that he has a general's mark and that he looks quite peaceful. Kajiro hears them all and then asks if they want to fight. He says that he will be bare-handed, but they can at least with weapons, even with magic. Everyone is surprised and doubts whether it is really possible, although they were offered it. Wolf and Burn go ahead. Wolf tells the other to leave because he wants to do it. Burn shouts that he was actually going to be the first. Wolf tells him to shut up and sit still. Kajiro hears this and says how young they are. Legas is still bowing and apologizing to him for his behavior. Kajiro tells Burn and Wolf not to be shy and that they can attack together. Kajiro sticks his sword into the ground and provocatively asks if they are afraid to lose together. Burn says here that he doesn't seem to take them seriously at all. Wolf is also angry and says that if so, they will show him. Kajiro says they have a good spirit, and it sounds interesting. He gets into a fighting stance and says that then the swordsman Kajiro is ready. In a split second, they are in front of Wolf, who panics and does not have time to do anything. Burn sees and immediately calls the bomb. The bomb explodes. Everyone pulls away. Kajiro says that it was a little dangerous right now, standing next to him without wounds and scratches. Bayan says he didn't even get hit. Wolf apologizes to him for underestimating him. Burn says it's okay. However, while they were talking, Wolf finally notices that he is attacking now. Wolf goes at him with his fist, and Burn calls the bomb again. Kajiro sees that they are using tactics with long-range and close-range attacks. Thinks that this is not bad. Wolf attacks and tells him that he will bite his tongue while chatting during the fight. Kajiro easily dodges his fist and immediately knocks his knee into his stomach. Burn sees him and calls him anxiously. Wolf is lying unconscious on the ground. He does not believe and asks if this is serious. Burn begins to boil even more and says that if he gives up now, his dignity will suffer. He tells Kajiro to get his strongest magic. Kajiro is just waiting for him. Burn asks if he is going to receive her standing up straight. If so, he will try to attack harder. He throws a high-range bomb, but the fire misses Kajiro because he stops it with one fist. Burn looks at him in shock. Kajiro asks him if they will continue. Burn refuses and says he's giving up. He admits that he has lost. The others stand in wonder. Kajiro defeated them so easily. All the students look at Kajiro admiringly. Charlotte and Rui stand to the side. Charlotte tells him it looks like it's going to get noisy. Rui agrees and says that now he will be taught how to use a sword. He also looks at it with admiration and thinks that now he will become even better. He's wondering what's going to happen next. Later, Rui holds a weapon. Kajiro tells him that he has strained his shoulders again. He needs to move the weight lower. He thanks him. Kajiro tells him that he's catching on fast. He smiles awkwardly and says that he just explains it well. Kajiro exhales and says that he used to be nobody, but he knows how to explain it so that it is clear. Rui thinks that his perseverance has given him a mark. Kajiro says that he will continue to teach the prince. Then Ibuki comes forward and says that he trains the prince himself, so he doesn't need to do this. Kajiro tells him not to be so wary. He's not going to do anything wrong with him. Ibuki says he doesn't suspect him, but it's his duty. He wants him to understand. The prince tells Ibuki not to. There is silence. Kajiro sighs, agrees, and then asks the others if there is anyone else. Burn and Wolf are holding out their hands. Ibuki sits dejected and says that somehow it turned out. Rui sees and tells him that this is the first time he has seen him like this. Ibuki apologizes to him for showing himself like that. Rui says not at all, and that he looked cool. Ibuki says he doesn't think he's bad. It's just that he can't let others get close to the prince without much to do. The prince hugs him and says why is he like that. He is grateful to Ibuki. He says with embarrassment that you're welcome. Rui looks and thinks that they really have strong connections. Rui tells Ibuki that then he will teach him today. He happily agrees. They shout that then they will start. A disappointed Kajiro stands in the background with a sword and says how sorry he is. Rui stands awkwardly so that sweat flows from him. He groans in despair and wonders how it happened. Charlotte is standing on one side of it, and Iris is on the other. Both look at him angrily and pull him towards them, pouting. Charlotte asks her why she always goes with him. She tells her not to interfere. She replies that she should be with Mr. Rui. She tells Charlotte to think about her rebellious behavior. Don't let her spoil Mr. Rui. They all continue to look at each other like that. Rui in the middle thinks that usually Wolf would also be with them. He mentally asks at least someone to save him. Then someone comes up to them and asks Rui how he is doing. He sees a calm Zion in front of him. Rui says that this is a surprise. He had heard that Zion was in trouble again. He laughs and replies that they shouldn't say that. He likes it when something interesting happens. He looks at the girls and asks who it is. Rui apologizes at first and says that he will introduce them now. Charlotte immediately says that she is Rui's girlfriend. Iris says that she is the most understanding of Mr. Rui and his subject. It's nice for her to meet him. Zion says how funny they are. Turning to Rui, he tells him to keep up. Rui covers her face with her hand and laughs awkwardly. Zion asks him if he is free now because he has information that he will like. He looks surprised and asks what kind of information he would like. Zion says he found a dungeon nearby. Rui asks in surprise if this is really true. Zion asks him. He was interested. He notices that the girls are wary. He tells them not to be afraid. He won't steal their prince. Rui asks him why he decided to tell him. He doesn't really need money, because he's in a dorm. Zion asks if he likes all kinds of treasures and monsters. Rui immediately says that it's really tempting. Zion says that the ruins there may also have a connection with the hero. Rui looks at him and then asks what it means. He laughs and says he's glad he's interested. He takes a paper out of his pocket and says that he has found the entrance there, but there is a pretty strong seal on it. So far, no one has entered it. He says that there is also such a template on that seal. He holds out the paper. Charlotte and Rui look at it in surprise, anticipating what is there. They see a drawing of a pink flower on the paper. Zion asks Charlotte if there is anything in this pattern. Charlotte looks and replies that this is the family label of the hero family. There is a high probability that this dungeon has some kind of connection with the hero. Zion turns to Rui and asks what he thinks about it. He remains silent, considering his words. After a while, the Kazakh goes and says how interesting it all is, what kind of treasure awaits them there. Zion asks her name and says that he has a rather unusual way of speaking. He asks where she's from. She says that she was born and raised in Cuba. He says it's clear to him now. Then that's where her dialect comes from. She speaks a dialect of Western Japan. The five of them, including Charlotte, Iris, Rui, Kazakh, and Zion, are walking through the forest. Charlotte asks Rui why Wolf didn't go with them. He replies that he is training with Burn today. After the fight with Kajiro, they began to train a lot. He believes that he also needs to not give in to them. Rui notices Kajiro gathering something in the forest. He immediately asks him why he is here. He turns and sees the students. Kajiro says he was told that effective medicinal herbs grow here, so he was looking for them. He also asks why they are here. Rui says they're actually going to see what's ahead of the dungeon. He asks in surprise if they are really going to the dungeon. He immediately says that it is dangerous there, especially since he is new. It is unknown what kind of monsters and traps are there. Rui says that, of course, they do not go there to play. If it is dangerous, they will immediately leave. He says they need to get there no matter what. Kajiro looks at them excitedly, and then asks them to at least take something with them. He gives the bottle back. Rui asks what it is. He replies that it is a homemade regeneration potion. It acts on abrasions and bruises. He tells them to be extremely careful again. They obey him. Rui thanks him for the potion. Kajiro turns away and leaves, and Rui says how kind he is. He then suggests that everyone pack up and go further forward to the dungeon. After a while, Zion says that they have come. Not that this is a new dungeon, the ruins have always been here. He thought they had already been looted, but about a week ago they accidentally found the entrance down. The Kazakh sees people and asks who they are. She says they look unpleasant. People turn around and look at them with their evil eyes. They rudely ask what they want. Those men who first came to the dungeon say that they thought someone had come, but it turned out that they were just children. They turn to the girls and pretend to say that it is dangerous here. If they walk here, they will be caught by bad adults. Charlotte openly shows her disgust for these men. Iris picks up and immediately agrees with her. She tells them that if they want to flirt, they should start by taking care of themselves. Men are being harassed. One of them with stubble points his dagger with his hand and shouts that he is, by the way, a professional adventurer. He will make them regret that they don't take him seriously. He attacks Rui and suggests starting with him. Rui easily evades the attack. The man does not have time to react, as Rui attacks him from the foot. On the ground lies this man who just boasted and was angry at them. His other friends are outraged at who these children think they are. Xian tells Rui that it looks like they won't get inside so quickly. Rui agrees and asks Xian if he will help them. Zion winks and says that he knows that he likes fun. Those men are shouting that there are more of them, so let them attack. Shin holds out his hand using magic and says that sometimes you need to show yourself as a senpai. He uses a clay creature, namely a magic doll. Huge stones come out of the ground. A huge golem appears, and everyone is horrified to wonder what kind of magic it is. A man with a trembling voice tells his men not to back down. One sticks his spear into this doll and screams that he got hit. However, he immediately realizes that he cannot bring it back. He says that he cannot get it. Zion continues to smile, and then commands the golem to act. Here, the golem just hits this man with his fist, so that even the earth shakes. This man is lying unconscious on the ground. The others are looking at him in fear. Here one shouts at everyone not to move from their place. One man grabbed Kaeta and held a knife to her. He says if they know what will happen to her if they move. The girl stands in front of him without emotion. Rui and Charlotte sigh wearily, as if they are disappointed. The man gets angry and asks if they even understand what's going on here. He begins to say that then he uses this knife. He does not have time to finish, as his knife, namely the blade, is simply cut into pieces. The girl cuts it with her sharp paw. She says with a sigh that her baby woke up because of the noise. Suddenly, a huge mantis appears from her sleeve. The man is horrified. Is it really a big mantis? The mantis hits this man. He falls. The Kazakh woman apologizes to the boy, that is, the mantis, for waking him up. The mantis is fawning over her. Then the men realize that they are already finishing. Zion inquisitively says that he did not know about it. Next time, in his opinion, he will have to ask to see it. The girl tells Senpai it's better to do something else now. The men try to attack Zion. They panic. One yell at the other to calm down, because he is alone, and there are many of them. The Kazakh woman says that the boy has already woken up. Then she suggests waking up the others. Numerous different monsters come out of her sleeves. She says that now they are equally divided. They are horrified where such huge machines came from, and even monsters unfriendly to people. She gives the command to attack. All the monsters easily cope with them, after which she praises everyone, and the monsters feel pleasure from it. She thanks everyone. She suggests moving on. It seems that everyone has figured it out too. Charlotte tells Iris again not to snuggle up to Rui, and she asks him if he's hurt. Charlotte says they beat them, of course, but it would be bad if they remembered them. Rui agrees and says that's why he will make them forget about them. He starts doing something to the man's head. Everyone looks at him in horror and does not understand what is happening. They ask what he's doing. Rui says this is what he learned from his teachers. If you run it electrically through your head, you can control your memories. There's an explosion going on here. After a while, the electrified man gets up and asks where he is, if he has seen them somewhere. Everyone looks at them awkwardly. After a while, they come up and wonder if this is a dungeon. They pass by. Rui says that it really looks quite mysterious. They see a seal in front of the doors. Zion says that this is the seal, and that it is quite strong. He takes a pebble and throws it at the door. It does not pass through the barrier and immediately breaks into small pieces. He says she's the same as she was before. He asks Charlotte if he can ask her for a favor. She says you can. Here Rui grabs Charlotte's hand, showing that he is worried. He says that if she's doing this for him, then don't let her overdo it. Charlotte only says that she will see if it is possible to remove the seal. She starts giggling. Rui gets confused and asks what's wrong. She thanks him for worrying about her, but it's also for her own sake. He continues to stare at her in surprise. Charlotte says that she herself wants to find out what her ancestor was like. She wants to see everything with her own eyes. She goes to print and thinks that, therefore, there is no point in her being afraid. She touches the seal, and the same flower appears on it. Everyone watches in surprise as the seal evaporates. Charlotte herself says in surprise that she succeeded. That's what Zion thought. She opens the door and says there's nothing special inside either. The Kazakh says that, however, well, the seal, if it were not for the hero's granddaughter, nothing would have happened, as it is calm inside. Here they want to come in, but someone calls them and asks them to stand. They turn around and see the adventurers. They all turn and look at the adventurers. One of them asks to let them get into this dungeon with them. Rui asks them who they are. One apologizes for scaring them. His name is Max. He is the leader of this group called the Jackal. One blue-haired guy says he's a thief. His name is Jim. He is pleased to meet them. The girl's name is Mal. She is a magician, although she is still a beginner. Rui asks them what their purpose is. Max asks them not to be afraid and says that they are still really weak. Their group is of the lowest rank. They can't do it alone, as they honestly admit, so they decided to ask if they could help. Rui asks what kind of help. They say that they actually secretly watched their fight. He apologizes for not being able to help. Charlotte asks to wait and ask reproachfully if there are any advantages to helping them. He happily says that there is. Max says that even though they are weak, but experienced in dungeons, they do not know how to find traps, treasures, and secret passages. Everyone falls awkwardly silent because they realize that this is true. Charlotte asks Rui what is the best thing to do. He replies that, in his opinion, they will not interfere with them. Iris says that she follows Rui's orders. Zion says that the main thing for him is to have fun. The Kazakh says that he does not want the share of the treasures to decrease. Max says that if they can't decide, then let them look at something. They say they have magic items. They pull out things. A charge ring that sucks in the magical power of the one who puts it on and accumulates it in himself. Rui stretches out with interest and shouts that it's cool. Jim says that it sucked out Max's magic power and released the part that wasn't included in it. Everyone looks at them awkwardly. He pulls out another one, the body change metal. If hung around the neck, it protects against any attack. Rui shouts that it sounds useful and asks if it is possible to try. He refuses, because it breaks even from a light attack. Zion and the Kazakh awkwardly stand aside and watch them. Max says that's not all. He pulls out an amplifying earring. Rui tells them that he allows them to go with them. The three of them react joyfully and ask if this is really true. Charlotte stands next to Rui and asks doubtfully if everything will be okay. Later, they all walk down the hallway together. Jim tells his leader that he's done well. They didn't think it would be so easy with Mal. Max asks if they remembered, if a strong opponent appears, then let them immediately run away. Max confidently whispers that the Jackals, will take all the treasures, and that they will need Rise Team. Rui turns around and asks Max what it is. He says that he just thought about telling about the dungeon. He says it's better to be careful. There should be a trap in such a corridor. Rui asks what the trap is. He says that, for example, spears emerging from the floor, or arrows. There may be a button in the floor, so they have to be careful. Immediately, Rui accidentally presses this button and then asks Max if he's talking about it. He confirms it. A huge rock with lava is flying towards them from above. A huge round stone is rolling down the corridor. Max indignantly asks why he stepped on it while he was talking. Cheerful Rui laughs and apologizes. Charlotte screams at everyone to do something. They took them with them to do something in such a situation. Max shouts at Mal to act. She gets scared and asks why she is. She summons a medium magic arrow. However, her weapon simply breaks under the pressure of this huge stone. Mal wonders if it didn't work out. Max says in horror, "Is it really a stone that seals magic?" He later claims that it is a stone that neutralizes magic. Rui asks if there is any way to break it. Max begins to reflect and says that he saw how he was hacked by a gold rank adventurer. But this stone is pretty strong. They are unlikely to do anything to him, so he suggests just running. Rui says that this means that it can be broken not by magic. Max stops him and asks what he is doing, calling him a fool. Rui uses Qigong, attacks with the first technique, which is called Meteorite Fist, Stone Fracture. He destroys this stone with one blow. The jackals stand and stare in shock. And Iris says that it was expected of him. Charlotte tells him to be careful. Rui awkwardly apologizes. They continue to move forward. Iris uses her blood spear, Zion uses her strength, and Kazakh uses her monsters. After a while, they walk and Zion happily says what a fun trap there was. The Kazakh says that. However, They have already gone far, but they have not found anything of the treasures. Rui says that there is a way deeper there. He's calling everyone. The three of them stand in fear and wonder if they can outsmart them. They are disappointed and fearfully say, well, they got people. They obediently follow them to the end. They are surprised that there is so much space in this place. Rui assumes that they are in the depths of the dungeon. Suddenly, Rui notices something. He asks, pointing to a red ball that has rings around it, if it is some kind of treasure. They see it floating, so they wonder what it is. Suddenly, the ball begins to sparkle brighter. The ball begins to move through the air and announce that it is checking vital reactions and begins checking the genes of the hero. The students turn around in a panic and ask what it is. The ball announces that the operation is completed. It starts transmitting to two people. Unexpectedly, Charlotte and Rui fall under the flow of this unknown force. Iris reaches out to Rui in horror, but they just disappear in an instant. There is silence among the people. Iris immediately clings to Max and demands to know what it is and where it was put. Max screams in panic that this is the first time he has seen such a thing, so he does not know either. Kazakh tells Iris to stop, explaining that panic will not help the case. Iris turns to her. She listens and says it's true, just like she says. She bows to Max, apologizes for her own lack of control. He says that it is not necessary. Max says, analyzing the situation, that the way they disappeared is similar to the magic of displacement. Most likely, they were transported somewhere to another room. By the way, the Kazakh asks Zion if he notices that there is some kind of unpleasant premonition. He confirms her words. Zion says that this sphere studied them and then transferred those two. It looks like she took them away and let them pass on. Unfortunately, she left them. Max asks, asking to wait. Does he really want to say that Zion finishes the deal for him and says they are no longer needed? Suddenly everything collapses. A huge golem appears in front of them. Those three jackals are staring at him in horror. Sion asks without emotion what they will do now without Rui. Rui opens his eyes in another place. He wonders where he is. Being next to Charlotte, he says that, apparently, only he and her were transported here. Charlotte hopes that everything is fine. Rui exhales and says that, by the way, they better take care of themselves. Charlotte says it's probably a lot more dangerous here. She's getting ready to grab her sword. Rui sees that her hand is starting to shake. He puts his hand over hers and tells her not to do that. He tells her with a smile that he is with her. Charlotte blushes. She starts saying that she will protect herself. But if he wants to, then so be it. She will let herself be protected. Rui agrees and says that it will be as she says. They hold hands. Rui tells her, further embarrassing her, that he will become her knight. They walk down the hallway together. They stop as soon as they see a silhouette in a dirty raincoat. They are on their guard. They immediately take out their swords. Rui says that before they entered the ruins, there was no one here. So why is he here? Rui asks the stranger who he is. He turns to them and says that he was waiting for them. He says they are the ones who will inherit the hero's intentions. Both look at him in surprise, not understanding what he is talking about. The stranger tells them that he is not an enemy to them, and then walks forward without showing his face. He asks them to come with him. Rui tells Charlotte that he does not feel any danger from him. He asks her what the horses will do. Charlotte says there is no other way, so they will try to follow him. They follow him. As soon as they enter, their eyes immediately widen. A stranger stands by a huge wall where different races are painted. Rui sees and says that one of them is an ogre hero. The stranger says that this is true, and that a third-generation ogre is depicted here. Rui asks where they are, and who he is in general. The stranger says that, okay, he will answer them one at a time. As soon as they see him, Charlotte involuntarily clings to Rui out of fear. They were scared by what they saw. The stranger says that they will be surprised for sure, because his face is so rotten. Charlotte and Rui stand in a stupor and look at him. The stranger begins to say that his name is. Suddenly he thinks about it and wonders what his name is. He hides his face with a hood. Charlotte and Rui stand awkwardly, waiting for him to remember his name. He says that's why he hates this zombie body. He says that this is the place to manage and protect data about Mr. Ogre. Here is information that cannot be leaked. This place is made to leave a memory for the future, and he is a part of this place. In order to correctly tell what is depicted on the fresco, he waited a long time for the right people for this. Rui asks him anxiously if he has decided to become like this himself. The stranger replies that everything is correct. He turns slightly. It is clear that his face without a shape looks flowing. He says he became immortal at will. He then suggests telling them about the hero and his three friends. Sean thoughtfully asks, as soon as he sees the huge golem, what they will do now without Ruzi. Iris screams that whatever he is, he's just a golem. She emphatically declares that she will deal with him. She summons a blood spear and sends it to the golem, but the spear breaks only because it came into contact with the golem's body. Max screams in horror that it is broken, and that this cannot be. He sees for the first time a golem made of sealing magic stones. He shouts that we need to retreat. Iris says that if you don't take it by magic, she prepares and then kicks the golem with her foot while jogging. However, it only hurts her leg. She lands, does not have time to get up. As the golem's hand flies towards her, she manages to react. From the golem's blow, everything is covered in dust and smoke. Iris opens her eyes and finds herself in the hands of a Kazakh woman who tells her not to get into such dangers, so let her stop. She asks her if she can go. She says he seems to be angry, so it's better to back off. She says we need to call more people. Iris asks her why she saved her. She could have just been dumped. The Kazakh begins to laugh at her reaction. Iris indignantly asks what's funny. The Kazakh apologizes and says, repeating her question, why did she save her? She knows why herself. Iris looks at her in surprise and asks if she really knows. Rui asks the stranger if he really wanted to become a zombie himself. He thinks to himself that if he becomes a zombie, then life and memory will be long. But in most cases, others break down psychologically from the fact that their body falls apart and becomes disgusting. Charlotte asks if this means that he has been alone here for 300 years. The stranger replies, then don't look sad. The fact that they came here is his reward, in his opinion. The stranger says that then he will continue his explanation. This mural depicts a hero and 3 other people. This is the team of the ogre hero, which is considered the strongest in history. They defeated the evil Jabberwocky king. Charlotte is surprised to ask about the hero's team, because neither she nor her ancestors have heard of it. The stranger confirms this and says that the information about them remains only here. However, his memory is also starting to fail him. He apologizes for the fact that his memories are now only fragmentary. He suggests starting with the one to the right of the hero. Her name is the Fairy King Titania. There is a fairy village somewhere. She rules it. Rui thinks about the fairy village and says that it was not only in a fairy tale. He is enthusiastically listening to zombies. The zombie goes further and says that the king of the 3 worlds, Balmung, is depicted to the left of the hero. Rui immediately asks him with interest who it is. He says after doubts that he still does not remember, then asks to wait, then sticks his finger into his skull. Charlotte and Rui look at him in horror. Charlotte asks in disgust what he is doing. He replies that if you interfere a little, he can remember a little. He keeps stirring something in his skull, and after a while says that he remembered. That's how it was. Balmung was the strongest fighter in the hero's team, and such a person was. Rui thinks to himself that later he will have to ask Wolf about him. After he tells everything, he concludes that the Snake Queen Echidna remains. It was written that she had the ability to see the future. She was the queen of Lamius, half human and half snake. Rui says he doesn't know her either, and then asks what about Charlotte. She replies that, unfortunately, she doesn't know either. She says she didn't think her generation would have to know such a secret. Rui notices and says that everyone except the hero is not human. Charlotte understands what he's talking about, and then says that they probably didn't want them to know that he had human partners. If everyone knew about this, the discrimination between non-humans and beastmen might decrease. Rui says, supporting Charlotte, that there must have been some reason, so it's better not to think too much. Charlotte agrees with him and thanks him. Charlotte, perplexed, remembering the conditions, asks him why he got here in the first place. He awkwardly and in a panic begins to apologize and say that he does not know himself. He himself wonders why. He thinks to himself that it's probably because he's been in an endless hell. He remembers something. His eyes widen. He says that, exactly, he just got into such an important room. He believes that it is possible to find a clue how to remove the seal from the endless hell. Rui turns to the stranger and asks him if there is anything else he needs to tell him. The stranger asks and thinks what else could be. He asks to wait, and then remembers. He quotes the hero, what he said then. He said that if the one who got here was in trouble, let him tell them to ask for the help of his partners. Rui asks if they really need to ask the hero's teammates for help. The stranger says that if there were anyone else with them, they also need help. Someone was attacked by a golem. Rui screams in fright that she should have said it earlier. He starts to move abruptly. His body glows with green magic. He apologizes to Charlotte and says that he is coming back. The stranger asks Charlotte who he is. She sighs and replies with some pride that she would like to know herself. The stranger says that's all he needed to tell. He had been waiting for this moment, but when it came, he suddenly felt lonely. He stretches out his hands and puts them on Charlotte's palm and thanks her for everything. She hugs him and says he's probably a hero too, even a better hero than her. The stranger tells Charlotte that his blood flows in her. He is very grateful to her. He wants the world to be at peace. After these words, the body of this zombie crumbles like sand right on Charlotte's hands. She continues to stand in silence. Her hands drop. She scoops sand into her palm and says she will inherit his desire. She claims to be the fourth hero, Kazakh woman. When asked by Iris why she saved her, answers with a question that she understands it herself. Iris continues to stare at her in surprise and bewilderment. Then Max turns to them and says that they need to run. With the help of his pet, the Kazakh walks away from the blow. Iris jumps back. Max looks scared and delighted at the same time. He says this is the power for the invulnerable to attacks. He says he has the strength of a rank. Jim and Mal tell Max that they have to quietly run away. They shout that they cannot cope with him. They have objects with which they can get out. Jim says they've already tried, but for some reason they don't work in this room. Mal then suggests just standing in the corner of the room, otherwise they will just get in the way. Max turns around and sees Iris and the Kazakh coping with the golem. He tensely wants to say something. Iris pushes off from the golem and jumps back, after which she is driven and goes to attack him. The golem attacks her. Iris's leg breaks so she can't move. The fist flies towards her. She covers herself with her hands and freezes in anticipation of death. After a while, she opens her eyes and sees that the golem has been stopped by some goo. Max comes up to her and asks if she's okay. She replies that she is fine. Iris asks him if he really stopped him. Max happily says it's him. Something similar to chewing gum sticks to the golem's leg. Max says that this is a special item of adventurers, which is called a sticky bomb. It only works for a few minutes, but skillfully stops big monsters. Jim comes up to Iris with a potion and tells her to drink. She looks at her in surprise. At this time, Mal ties up Iris's leg and asks her to tell if it's too tight. Iris is embarrassed to thank them for putting a bandage on her, but she asks why they are here. It would be smarter for them to just run away. Max says that everything is as she says. Iris is surprised. Max says that in fact they always ran away. They tricked other adventurers and made decoys out of them. They were cowards because they were weak. But when they saw him, Rui, they thought that whether they should stay like this. He remembered his childhood dream. He wanted to become a cool adventurer. Max apologizes and says that even if they don't need it, they will still help them. He tells his guys to show themselves. Mal and Jim obey their leader. The golem starts moving and activates the fire in its palms. Max wants to say that if you set fire to the Velcro, then he realizes that the golem did it and wonders if he could have done it anyway. The golem collects fire in his hand. Mal and Jim are in fear. Iris looks confident, and Max says with a smile that there is nothing to be afraid of. He pulls out his racket and says to rely on him, calling him a partner. Iris, horrified, asks if he is going to fight this. He asks her to just look at it. Max pulls a rope and puts a ball there, saying that he saved it many times. He throws it away, saying it's a smoke bomb. Mal and Jim say the leader is doing well. Mal comes up to the Kazakh woman with the potion. She says that he is just right. Jim approaches Zion, who drinks a potion from them, thanks them and honestly says that he did not expect help from them. They want to say that this is the end, although it is unlikely. The golem is still standing whole in front of them. Iris and Max look at him. Max pulls on his racket again and says that then he will have to show his best. He shoots a kind of slippery ball. This ball falls on the golem's leg and envelops it. Jim also throws balls, which he calls a special lubricant, and shouts at him to get them. The golem is standing in the mud. Jim shouts at Mal to act. She shoots her magic weapons, telling him to rely on him. She attacks him with a fiery arrow. The golem starts to burn completely. Max claims that even in a class monster can't resist such a combo. Nothing harms the golem. Max stands in front of him in a stupor in his thoughts that all this did not work. Remotely, he is told to run already. He keeps thinking about what to do, but he doesn't move because of the panic. A bloody spear is flying to the golem here. Iris pushes Max to the side while the golem gets hit. They fall. Max gets up and says in a trembling voice that she saved him. He is already fully up and confidently thanks her for saving him, saying that now he owes her. Here Iris says that she just did a natural thing for her. She stops talking and tries to say something, fighting herself. She remembers Kazakh's words, why she saved her. She understands why. She thinks that when she was rescued, she couldn't think of anything. Iris says she doesn't need a reason to save someone. She just wanted to say it. She blushes. She goes down and says it's mysterious. When she fights with someone, her feelings get stirred up. She wonders if Mr. Rixia felt it too. Iris stands up and confidently says that it's her turn now. Iris says it's her turn now. The monster swings his fist. She dodges and immediately summons a bloody sword. She sticks this sword right into the eye of this monster, after which she immediately jumps back. The monster does not react in any way and attacks her with his fist. Iris falls to the ground with a groan. Max runs up to her and asks if she's okay. He immediately gives me a bottle and tells me to drink a regeneration potion. The monster approaches them. Max apologizes, saying that he is useless after all. Iris says that's not the case. She says that it was thanks to them that she was saved. The monster attacks, but a certain flash appears right in front of it. Rui stands in front of them, and then turns around and says with a smile that he is back. The golem stands without one eye and makes a sound. Rui uses his magic analysis, but immediately wonders if he has beaten it off. He suspects that these are magic seal stones. He says that now he understands why it was not possible to defeat him. He decides then to kill him with it. He summons his sword through the earring, swings it, and cuts through space. The golem falls apart with a groan. Rui exhales and says that they are safe now. He runs up to the guys and asks if they have any wounds. That trio of jackals admire him and ask to be allowed to call him their bro. Max asks to take him on as an apprentice. Rui doesn't understand what's going on. Zion says you won't get bored with him. Rui sees him and the Kazakh and is glad that they are okay. Kazakh says that if he is going to praise, then let him praise her, that is, Iris. They turn to her. She looks at him with bleary and submissive eyes. She says, folding her hands in front of her, that she believed in him. She believed that he would return. Rui comes up to her, takes her hands, and says that he believed in her too. He thanks her for protecting them all. Charlotte comes in and says it looks like they've already dealt with him. While Marl treats Iris's leg, Rui gets up and calls Charlotte. Charlotte sees the wounds and says that, apparently, they didn't get him easily. He tells Rui that he's doing great. She sees that trio of jackals behind Rui and says that some weirdos always like him. Rui awkwardly says that the Kazakh woman has already told him this. They start shaking. The Kazakh asks, but aren't they shaking? Even Zion is a little worried. Stones begin to fall from above. Max shouts that the dungeon is collapsing. If they don't get out, they will be buried alive. They're all looking away in panic. Max is especially panicking, but says that usually, if you go through the dungeon, there will be a way out. So why isn't there one this time? Rui remembers that this dungeon is a building made to keep the secrets of the hero. If the infiltrators defeated the golem, then the whole dungeon will start to collapse. It's such a double trap, he shouts to Max. Maybe they have some kind of object. He answers uncertainly, as if there is, but he turns to his team and asks if they agree. They voluntarily nod in agreement. Max tells his bro that this is a magical item, a magic moving stone. He hands him 3 red stones. He says that if you work magic on him, he will transfer them outside. After defeating the golem, it can be used. To this, he only adds sadly that there are only 3 stones left, so he has to choose only 3. Rui looks at him awkwardly and in disbelief. Rui screams that he can't. Max holds out everything and asks him to do it, because, unlike him, they were only cowards, and he can choose who to save. Rui reaches out, takes it, and thanks Max, but he can't choose anyone. He claims that he is greedy, and he doesn't want anyone to die. Rui shoves these stones back at Max, who asks, then how will they get out? Rui tells him to believe in him. He uses magic. A huge light sphere appears in his palms. Everyone looks at him in surprise and admiration. Iris even cried a little at what she saw. Rui uses a powerful beam, which then explodes and illuminates everything inside. This beam is driven into the ceiling and collapses it. Iris watches and thinks to herself that she now understands that a powerful ray can cancel magic. If the dungeon is created from magical power, it can simply be erased with a powerful beam. Rui exhales, loses his balance, and tells the guys that everything is up to them. Iris catches him and thanks him for his work, holding his body. Iris turns to the Kazakh and asks her if they can somehow take off. The Kazakh woman raises her hand and says to rely on her 18-year-old baby and on her, respectively. She calls a certain radish, and they say that they are going to fly now. They all fly away with the monster, holding on to each other. Zion happily says that they somehow escaped. Jim says from below that thank God they were saved. Zion is just as happy to talk, that he had fun. The guys indignantly ask him if he's serious. In the dead of night at the hostel, everyone says goodbye, wishing each other a good night. They all disperse, saying goodbye to Rui. Rui barely walks down the corridor and whines that his whole body hurts. Then he meets someone. Kajiro's teacher shouts loudly that he's finally back. Rui is surprised to recognize Kajiro's teacher and immediately asks him why he is even here. He says worriedly that he found out from the head of the hostel that he has not returned yet. He didn't think that he would come back so battered after they talked to him in the woods. Rui awkwardly and guiltily apologizes to him. Kajiro asks him if he has used his potion. Rui takes out that bottle again, as if he had forgotten it during the battle. Kajiro then demands to give it back here. They're sitting in the room. Kajiro treats his back with this potion, and Rui screams that it stings a little. Then he screams, pinches already, and even pinches very much. After a while, Rui examines himself and says that it has already become much easier. Here Kajiro says that his potion works great. He then adds that, however, it is good that he is fine. He believes that children should not take on such a thing. He gives instructions. Then, after lying in the bath and sleeping, everything will pass. Then he says goodbye and tells him to rest, after which he leaves. Rui thanks him. Rui reflects that he was really worried about him and was waiting for him. He thinks we should thank him at school tomorrow. On a bright day, Rui exercises, breathing in parallel to the beat. After a while, he falls on his stomach and says he's tired. A bird flies into his window and says something to him, holding a flower in its beak. Rui sees him and shouts his name. He takes what he was steaming and says it's a big fruit. He asks if he really brought it to him. He makes a sound, after which Rui thanks him. The fairy cuddles up to him, rubs its nose against his head. Rui says, holding a large fruit in his hands, that it's time for him to go to school. After a while, outside for practice, Kajiro apologizes to the guys for being so sudden, but today will be the last lesson with him. He says they didn't spend much time, but it was worth it. Kajiro looks strangely suspicious and saddened. Rui notices this and continues to look at him suspiciously. Charlotte turns to Rui and asks him if something has happened. He apologizes and says that nothing happened. Rui wonders why his mood is worse than usual today. During training, Kajiro tells Ibuki that he is squeezing too much. Ibuki, in his defense, says that if he doesn't squeeze like that, he'll drop it. Kajiro says to squeeze when he attacks, so reaction is important, but his stance is better than before, according to Kajiro. Ibuki laughs and says that, so it needs to be made even better. He says he's going to practice. Kajiro calls the next one, and then turns his attention to the prince, asking if he needs his help. The prince says he thought it would be good for him to learn how to wield a gun. 2. Kajiro sees that he has a staff in his hands and says that then he knows a little about it too. He approaches him and suggests starting with how to hold him. After training, Kajiro says that he will attack now. He asks the prince to try to defend himself, as he showed him. The prince agrees with him. The prince confidently holds the staff in front of him. Kajiro sadly, or even fatally says that he has a good stance and a confident look. Then he says how sorry he is. He pulls out his sword and points it at the prince. He announces that they are starting. The prince agrees in disbelief. It is clear from him that he is nervous. Kajiro raises his sword and attacks him with light blows. The prince dodges his blows, and then rejoices that he succeeded. Here Kajiro smiles suspiciously, frowns and quietly asks for forgiveness, and then attacks with a sword, cutting the prince. The dead body of the prince falls to the ground. All the students look at him in horror. The Kazakh is more at a loss. Kajiro puts the tip of the sword on the prince's head and says goodbye to him forever. Rui immediately steps in and stops Kajiro with his sword. He asks him what it all means. Ibuki comes and asks what he is doing at all. He screams in rage, but how dare he attack him? He convulsively repeats the question and shouts that he will kill him. Burn and the others stand in a stupor and watch them. Rui tells Ibuki not to submit to anger. He yells not to stop him, claiming that he will kill him. Rui tells Ibuki that actually, he whispers something in Ibuki's ear. He calms down and asks if this is really true. He believes Rui and says that then he will rely on him and bows. Rui told Ibuki to protect them all. Charlotte looks at him questioningly. Rui stands in front of him, confidently pointing the sword at Kajiro, who, on the contrary, puts the sword back in its case. Iris is standing next to them. She analyzes their capabilities and says that there is not a single weak point. Their difference in strength is huge. Wolf stands on the side and is angry about why there is no way to influence such a situation. Then Charlotte tells him that he is not alone here, because she is like that too. Charlotte says she's sorry, because it's not fair, but there's nothing she can do about it, in her opinion. Rui stands in front of Kajiro. Charlotte says that you need to watch and remember. She looks at them hopefully and silently begs Rui to be okay. Rui asks Kajiro directly why he did it. He says with regret that he didn't spend much time with them, but he, Kajiro, who worries about them, seemed like that to him in reality. Kajiro is silent at first and does not answer anything, and then only squeezes out that everything is not so simple. After a pause, he says they won't understand. He calmly asks Rui if he can get out of the way. He declares a wish that he doesn't want to hurt anyone except the prince. He adds that the blow seemed fatal to him, but he needs to make sure that his breathing is stopped. Behind them, all the classmates are trying their best to cure the prince. Rui tells Kajiro that he won't let him leave, the man who maimed his friend, and he also has no reason to attack him. Kajiro does not look him in the eye and says that he is partially right, and it is not easy to understand why he needs to kill someone. He pulls out his sword again and says that. However, he has his own reason. He sets a condition for him that, if he blocks his way, he will pass by force. Kajiro points his sharp sword at Rui. Kajiro pulls out his sword, points it at Rui, and says that, however, he has his own reason why he has to kill the prince. He says that if he, Rui, blocks his way, he will pass by force. Rui does not go anywhere and does not give up his choice. Kajiro understands this and disappears from Rui's field of vision in a moment. In a split second, Kajiro is right in front of Rui with a smile, brandishing his sword and attacking Rui. He attacks horizontally, which Rui manages to dodge, sit down, and get away from the blow. Rui stands up and takes a horizontal sword position, thereby deflecting Kajiro's blows. Kajiro tells him that he is not bad, since he can deflect his blow. Sweating and tired, Rui says it's all thanks to his teachers. He declares that he will not lose so easily, after which he attacks cleanly with his fist down, but Kajiro easily gets away from a side kick. In the same second, Kajiro gets up and attacks him with his foot, but Rui deflects his blow with his forearm, which earns a large wound. He steps back because he realizes that he won't get out close, so he needs to step back. He stretches out his hand and causes a large flame. A huge ball of fire forms in his palm. Kajiro just obediently waits for his actions, not afraid of anything. He sees his efforts and says that Rui has well-trained magic. However, he asks him a question. Does he really think that this can take him? Kajiro raises his sword in an upright position and pronounces the words Tengenryu Tailcoat. His sword easily cuts through and extinguishes the huge flame that Rui caused. He stands in shock and cannot believe that his fire has been stopped. Kajiro immediately approaches him and shouts that there is no time to be surprised. In a panic, Rui steps back step by step Kajiro. Kajiro attacks with a sword. He reflects with his sword, holding it with both hands. Kajiro says that doing what the enemy doesn't like is the basis of the battle. Rui moans from the load. At this time, Kajiro reflects that if everything is converted into numbers, then there is not much difference between him and Rui. He believes that he is just a child. He lacks experience. If he continues like this, then for sure, he returns to the battle with his thoughts and sees that he skillfully deflects blows. He's surprised for a second that he doesn't hit it at all. He begins to wonder if he is getting stronger during the battle. Then he changes his mind, abandons that thought, and realizes that Rui remembers his movements with incredible speed. Rui stands confidently in a sword stance. Then he proudly declares that he learned by memorizing from his sister and Ryo, and that he understood his pattern. Kajiro attacks again. He deflects the blow. Rui barely holds on. Sweat is flowing from him. His strength is running out. Rui thinks that he wants to move away and switch to magic attacks, but he does not have enough speed to move, thanks to the shuffling of his feet. It is difficult to predict his next actions. He keeps thinking about finding his weak spot. Here Kajiro gets too close and says with a grin that Rui got caught. He uses Tengenryu, this time a woodpecker. Then Kajiro hits his sword directly into Rui's shoulder. He coughs in pain. His shoulder begins to bleed profusely. Kajiro says goodbye to him forever, calling him a strong boy, and then he swings his sword. Here Rui uses Qigong, the protective technique number 7, namely hot air. Thus, the Rui evaporates under it. Kajiro is surprised by such a trick and wonders what it was just now. Rui moves to another place. Kajiro stands in a stupor from shock. Rui is going to deliver the decisive blow, a space cut. Kajiro prepares to defend himself, says it's a good move, but only if he hits. He's grinning. Kajiro uses Tengenryu again, namely the swallow's tail. The sword hits right on Rui's chest. Rui is bleeding and squatting, barely holding his sword. Kajiro wipes the blood off his sword as it groans in pain. Kajiro looks and says he's not losing consciousness. It can't be that he survived his swallow tail, so he thinks he's not bad. Kajiro leaves and speaks. That will check the prince's breathing, and then they will disperse. Rui continues to lie in place. Kajiro approaches. Iris, Charlotte, and Wolf are standing in front of him. He says he doesn't like to kill without a good reason. If they leave, he won't hurt them. They do not obey and only maliciously tune in to him. Charlotte asks if he really wants them to calmly watch him kill their friend. Is he laughing? Kajiro sighs and says that since that's the case, it will hurt them. Rui slowly comes to his senses and only begs to wait. His eyes slowly close. He remembers the days in endless hell. Ryo told him that he had become stronger, but he still lacks something. Rui asks what it is. Ryo says that he lacks determination. If he gets into his own world, there may come a situation where he will have to kill the enemy. Rui begins to say that it is not necessary to put his life on the line. If we talk, then he can understand. Ryo indignantly replies that she knew he would say that. She hugs him and says that his kindness is his strength. But if everything could be discussed, wars would not happen. Things that are important to him can be lost in an instant. In this case, she asks him not to get lost when he is fighting for his life and death. Rui returns to consciousness from this memory. Kajiro and Charlotte look at him in surprise. Rui apologizes to Rio and says that he remembered. Rui gets up from the ground and straightens up.